It's a very efficient fuel. Yes, I realize that it does produce emissions. They have to come a long way, and I really struggle to clean up a lot. You know, I don't know, it's
But you know, when you go through, they talk about
Good afternoon. The Washington County Quorum Court is now called into order. Let's go ahead and start with our prayer and pledge. J.P. Bowman.
Lord, we come before you tonight. We're thankful for all the people that come here to serve. And Lord, I just ask you for wisdom, discernment as we make decisions tonight about all the things going on in Washington County, that we'll choose wisely in all we do. I just thank you for all the many blessings, and I ask you to bless this time now. And thank you for those 4-H members that provide refreshments for us. And we just ask you to continue to bless their leaders and their leadership. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Thank you, J.P. Bowman. All right, so we'll go ahead and move to our adoption of the agenda.
I move adoption of the agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda. All in favor? J.P. Harbison?
Microphone.
Here's your mic.
On number 15, I would like to amend 15 to take the 100,000 out of courts, fees, and fines instead of out of unappropriated reserves.
Go ahead. All right, that doesn't have to be amended. We just, when you had the discussion at the ordinance, we can make that. What was the other? I saw another hand over here. All right, so we have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? And the adoption of the agenda has been accepted. Preliminary motions.
I move that the ordinances be read by title only tonight and the resolutions.
All right, have a motion to read by title only.
Second.
And a second by J.P. Lemming. All in favor? Those opposed?
I had a comment.
J.P. Pine.
I'd like to take exception with number 9. I would like to have it read in its entirety. It's self-explanatory. To inform ourselves and the people of the county.
Should I accept that as a friendly amendment?
We'll do that
We've
at the
already,
time.
we've
We
already
accepted that.
voted, but.
So during the time of that ordinance piece.
Okay.
We can have that. All right, so we have the preliminary, adoption, first and second, and it's been approved. Citizen comments at this time. We'll ask citizens to come before us. You have a total of 15 minutes, 3 minutes per person. Come and share what you're seeing in the county, the good, the bad, and everything in between. Sit down, tell us who you are and where you're from. I mean, not White County, but now you're here. Welcome to Washington County.
My name is Isaac Galvey. I'm the new 4-H agent here at Washington County Extension. I'm very excited to be here. I grew up doing 4-H and being involved, and I'm very excited to be on the leadership end now instead of the participant end. I'm very excited to be working with all of you. I hope I get to know you, and so I'm very happy to be here.
Well, welcome to the county.
Thank you.
Ms. Isaac.
Welcome.
You got a great group of folks here. Any others? There we go.
I think most of y'all know me already, but once again, I'm Zoe Armstrong. I'm with the Washington County 4-H, and I just want to say thank y'all for everything y'all have done with helping us throughout everything, coming to judge at county events or coming at state events just to view or judge. Just want to say thank you for all y'all's support.
Appreciate it. And you were from where? You right here?
Yeah,
Okay,
I've grown up
there it
my
is.
whole life.
Oh, yeah. Citizen comments. Okay, we'll close citizen comments. Approval of minutes.
I move approval of the minutes with one little alteration. On the back of, on the first page, down about halfway, it said there were no citizens' comment, and it sounds as if we didn't provide for citizen comment. So I've talked to Ms. Patty, and it would be clearer that there was just there were no citizens' comments.
Yes.
They had the opportunity, but they didn't make any. So
Perfect.
I just think that would be a better way to say it, and with that, I'll move approval.
All right, so we, with that acceptance.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? All right. County Judge's report, it'll be somewhat brief. Your IT department here in the county just placed in ninth place out of 3,100 counties across the country. They came in ninth place. They'll be recognized next month with the National Association of Counties. Some of the work that they've been doing in their IT department and across the county got submitted. They applied, and their goal was hopefully to place in the top 20 for the first time ever applying, and they placed in the top 10. So again, kudos. You see our IT team, hats off to them. Great work that they've done, and again, out of 3,000 counties in the country, they placed in number 9. So hats off to them. Grants, earlier this week we received $798,000. The balance for our Dye Creek Bridge that we opened up last year. Was that earlier this year? I can't even remember all the bridges that we have, but year to date, we're just over $1.7 million in grants. We have another $1.2 million in grants pending. So again, kudos to our grants department who's getting after it. Our roads department, again, have been extremely busy. You guys know with all the water and the rain, they have been extremely busy with getting the ditches pulled and getting potholes filled. So again, a lot of catch-up work, and I will have to say that some of those other areas across the state have been impacted nearby us. We'll call on our road department and our emergency management just to be on alert, anything that they need from us in way of equipment, rescue, any of that type of thing. And again, Washington County has always been available to them, and so they're really appreciative of our road department as well as our emergency management team. Building and grounds, again, I'd like to wish and extend a big acknowledgement to Chief Gales, Dwight Gonzalez, and Mr. Peoples and their building and grounds team. They did yeoman's work over the past month, really all for the past 3 or 4 months, getting the CSU building ready. And so, again, the work that they've been doing, as well as maintaining all the other buildings, has been just, again, going above and beyond. So, again, you see the building and grounds team, again, hats off to them, Chief Gales, and all the building and grounds crew. Northwest Arkansas CSU update again. I again extend my appreciation to each and every one of you JPs and to our former JPs. It would not have happened without your commitment to the citizens of this county, saying we can do something with our citizens in mental crisis and needing help, as well as support of our law enforcement. So again, thank you, thank you, thank you. I think last Friday, Governor Hutchinson came in, did a ribbon cutting. We had a number of you guys there. We had some JPs from the former group here. And then just seeing the cross-sectional, again, I get all excited, not just because I know how hard you guys work, but being able to see the cross-sectional work across other county lines. This Northwest Arkansas region is a reason why people move to this area. They believe in what's possible, and you guys help make that happen. So again, thanks to you guys for the work that you guys did and helping make that happen. Juneteenth, again, will happen Saturday. Northwest Arkansas recognizes the ending of slavery, and they'll be doing the celebration. University of Arkansas is hosting the Northwest Arkansas Juneteenth celebration at the campus on Saturday, 4 to 7 o'clock. If you're out and about and want to go and participate, love to have you. And then Brush Creek Bridge is the last of our 2017 project. If you guys remember the big flood in 2017, we had about 78 roads and bridges impacted, and 2 were outstanding. We got one of them open last year, and we looked at having Brush Creek open before the 4th of July. And so July 2nd, we will have the ribbon cutting for the Brush Creek Bridge, and that'll be our last of the 2017 project. So that's a huge piece. At 10 a.m. in the morning, we'll send out a press release tomorrow, and make sure that you guys have invitations, JPs, if you're available at 10 in the morning on July 2nd. I can't remember what day that is. Love to have you guys come out there for that particular piece. That's all I have for the judge's report. We got a pretty full agenda, so we'll move on. Let's see. Emergency ordinance, J.P. Deakins. Deakins. Where is he? What did I say? Jenkins. J.P. Deakins.
County Attorney Lester, will you read this ordinance by title only?
An emergency ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit granted by the Planning and Zoning Board.
This permit is to open up, of course, you see the name of it here. It's an RV park and stables. I've talked to the owner, Mr. Dotson, and the developer, and what he has explained to me is that as people take their animals around the country to recreate, their horses and things to ride, Northwest Arkansas is in a unique position geographically for them to stop over and spend some time. If you've had any experienced hauling stock animals, you know, you can only trailer those for so many hours, and this, like I'm saying, is geographically a good place for people that are coming from the north, maybe down to Dallas or something, or St. Louis, Kansas City on their way to Dallas, to stop over here, let those animals out, you know, rest, everybody rest. So I think it's going to be a good addition to our county out there, and also a good addition to Northwest Arkansas. I make a motion that we pass this ordinance as read.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Quorum Court comments, any comments? J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Judge. I just had a question. Did this, I assume this went to the Planning and Zoning Board. How did they handle it? Do you know?
Planning and Zoning Board passed this unanimously by all the commissioners that were there.
Thank you.
J.P. Bowman, hit your mic.
For those that hadn't been out there to look at that location, you know, we've had a lot of issues about people wanting to put homes out there, and it was all going into a septic system that was putting the lake at danger. Any septic was be removed here. They have facilities that will be pumped and removed from the site. So I think this is a great choice for that area because it protects our lake and still provides a great service here, especially for rodeos, the Ozarks kind of situation, because there's an awful lot of visitors here that comes with animals that need a place to camp out and so forth. So I think it's a really, really positive outcome for that area. Thank you.
Thank you, J.P. Bowman. Any other comments? All right, public comments. Any public comments? All right, Ms. Patty.
Andrea Jenkins. Suki Hires. Yes. Sue Madison. Yes. Willie Lemming. Yes. Ann Harbison. Yes. Butch Pond. Yes. Lance Johnson. Yes. Susan Cunningham. Yes. Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Patrick Deakins.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke. Yes. Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
All right, that ordinance passes. Again, for the conditional use permit. Thank you, J.P. Deakins. Item 9, J.P. Pond. Will you read your ordinance?
Yes, if you would, please, I'd like this one read because it explains itself, and there's many people will be inquisitive about how this is being passed, if it does.
You want it read in its entirety, is that right?
Please, I would.
Make sure I'm on the right.
Or I'll read it if you'd like for me to.
Oh, that's fine. This is an emergency ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit, whereas the Planning and Zoning Board denied a conditional use permit on May 3rd, 2018 for the Old Wire Services and Recreational Facilities, and whereas the denial was appealed to the Quorum Court on July 19th, 2018, and the denial was upheld by the Quorum Court on August 16th, 2018. Whereas these decisions were appealed to the Washington County Circuit Court, where on June 10th, 2019, the Circuit Court granted summary judgment in favor of the applicant and directed the Quorum Court to issue a conditional use permit. Whereas immediate ratification is necessary by the Quorum Court to comply with the orders of the Washington County Circuit Court and to prevent undue delay and expense to the applicant. Now therefore be it ordained by the Quorum Court of Washington County, Arkansas, Article 1, that the conditional use permit for the Old Wire Services and Recreational Facilities is hereby ratified. In Article 2, an emergency clause, it is hereby determined that in the best interest of the applicant and the public, for this ordinance to be effective immediately, therefore an emergency is declared to exist, and this ordinance shall be and is effective on the date of its passage.
As I do believe that we were sincere and to the point as the reasons we had to deny this, but it has been taken to circuit court and was found that we didn't have good reason to deny. I move that we honor the judiciary branch of our government. I move that we pass 9.1.
All right, got a motion and a second. J.P. Madison?
So this is the first I'm hearing that we lost of this. And I don't, is this the strip mall out by, out east of Joyce?
Which one? That's told me.
This was the one that, like, the guy said, well, I won't put anything illegal in the buildings, right?
Yes.
But we have no idea what's in them. Right? Is that the same one?
That's the Tobin, yeah.
So why do we keep losing these? What are we doing wrong? Because, I mean, because I'd like to evaluate whether this should be appealed. I mean, to find out tonight that we lost without reading the decision, without knowing what it is, and the appeal time hasn't expired, I'm curious to know from the residents what they're thinking, if they're planning to appeal. I mean, the appeal time doesn't expire until the court's decision has been up for 30 days. So, I mean, as a lawyer, I'd like to look at the decision, think about it, talk to the citizens involved, because you all remember this was extremely controversial with the citizens out there, and I think many of us went out and drove by the property. So I think to rush it through with the same night we're informed that we lost, to be asked to pass an emergency ordinance is, I'm not okay with that. I'd like to see the decision, I'd like to evaluate it, and I move to table this until the next meeting.
J.P. Madison, you had a comment?
There's a motion on the floor to table.
So we had to take the motion to table first, and then we'll go back to the original motion. We got a first and a second. We'll do a roll call on that one, Ms. Patty.
Do a roll call.
This is on the table. You want to go ahead and take, go ahead, got a question?
My question is, if it's being tabled to the next quorum court meeting, that's 30 days that will lapse. And if we only have 30 days in which to appeal, then that time period would have expired. So we need to either appeal, table it till before.
Could we pull that at the finance and budget?
Yes or no? I mean, I guess I'm asking a question.
No.
Well, we can ask for a stay, I mean, to make a decision.
Go ahead.
If I need some counsel on this,
Just to
thank
answer the
you.
question, so what happened in this particular case, we did file the appeal, and I prepared affidavits for all the members of the court who were still on the court who voted against it. I got 3 back. I got 1 back from J.P. Bowman, J.P. Ecke, and J.P. Harbison. I did not get 1 back from J.P. Madison or J.P. Sue Madison.
I was out of the country. You gave me 24 hours notice.
Okay.
So.
Well, I never got one, so the court found that saying that something is just not compatible is not enough reason, compared with the proof that had been provided.
Can you explain what happened with the requests for admission that were deemed admitted?
There were no requests for admissions in this one.
Were there requests for admission that were missed in another case?
There were requests for admissions in another case, I believe so. I don't know if it was this one or not.
Okay, and there was no response, and they were deemed admitted?
That's correct. It was a request from each of the JPs, or a request that, something about a professional service. It didn't factor into this case.
It wasn't this case?
I don't believe so.
Okay, so the question that J.P. Ecke, if we wait till the next quorum court, then the 30 days lapse. One or two things, can we, I think J.P. Madison mentioned the stay, or can we bring that at the finance and budget meeting, which will be still within the time frame?
So this happened last week. I'm not sure if an order has been filed yet. I know the order was submitted, but I haven't seen it come across that the judge has actually signed the order. So I think you could table it. I mean, I don't think you could take it up at the finance and budget, because if you pass an ordinance, you're gonna have to call a special election, or a special meeting.
Okay.
I
Go ahead, JPA.
would really like for us to keep a close eye on this, because the citizens that did come out, and I did go out and we measured, and there was 25 feet from the driveway to where the beginning of the building was. And what he was proposing in this neighborhood was not conducive, and it met our objections. I do believe as we voted, we cited all the reasons why. So if you would, Mr. Lester, counsel us after court on how to proceed on this, because on behalf of their citizens, this should not have been allowed. In my opinion, I'm not a circuit judge, and I don't see everything from their point of view, but with the information that was presented by our planning board, by our planning department, and by us, we all said no. So if you
JP
could
Pond
keep
and
us
then.
apprised.
All right, JP.
All right, thank you.
JP Pond and then JP Madison.
I get a little curious about how, when I recognize all of us had a sincere, honest reason to deny, and we were in agreement, how are we gonna say we have some other reason now, change our wording and give some other reason to deny other than what we did in order to make our denial seem more legal-like, or what? I mean, I have a little problem with wrangling. Well, I don't have a problem with the citizens out there taking this to a higher court for appeal, but I have a little problem with we, a government entity, taking county tax dollars to wrangle and argue with our judiciary branch, who's using state tax dollars. We're spending county tax dollars against state tax dollars. I just have a little bit of trouble with our branches of governments fighting each other with our tax dollars that could be used for something more constructive.
Okay,
Thank
JP
you.
Pond. JP Madison?
Mr. Lester, since the judge hasn't signed it, do you think that just as a courtesy to the way our body operates, the judge might hold the order to give us time to be able to make an informed decision on whether we want to appeal? And I'm not saying that we need to appeal. I just think that this body should evaluate the decision thoroughly, because it's a little disheartening when 15 members of a legislative body study something and take action, and then a single member of the judiciary is just wiping out our legislative decision. It's just frustrating. You begin to wonder, where is our legislative power in all this? And I know J.P. Bowman's been very frustrated by this process, but I mean, if every time we make a decision we're going to lose in court, then we're going to have a reworking of this situation. But I just think perhaps we're not like a typical party in a lawsuit where we can just get together tomorrow and decide whether we want to appeal. And so if the order hasn't in fact been signed, then I think that it would be possible with the parties in the case to just at least give us time to properly review the decision and evaluate it and decide whether we want to appeal. But such is the nature of lawsuits and litigation, is that sometimes you have to spend county dollars to fight for county citizens, and that's why people pay taxes, to do that very thing. So, but we need time to evaluate that properly, and so I'll just restate that I think we need time on this, and so I think tabling until we have better evaluation is the right thing to do.
I don't have a problem with any of that. The problem is, you guys can't discuss this outside of a meeting, okay? And so I have an obligation to get this to you when it comes up, which is even if I send it all to you, you can't have a discussion before tonight about it. The issue with this legislative, the court has found that you guys approving conditional use permits is not a legislative act. That is an administrative act. You are, if you were, there's some case law you'd have to read, it's hard to explain, but the courts have found that this is, you are, I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but you're looking to see if these issues conform to the rules that you've written, and therefore that's administrative and not legislative. If it was a straight zoning issue that you were changing the zoning and there were no issue, it was strictly your decision, that would be a legislative act because only you could do that. But this is not that. So the court has found that there isn't any legislative, this isn't legislative, and that's why the court gets involved. And it's part of your rules with how these CUPs are done. I can ask the court to hold off. I don't think J.R. Carroll would agree. I think he would ask the court to go ahead and sign the order, and then our 30-day starts on filing a notice of appeal. Again, I can't do that without this body voting to tell me that that's what the body wants to do. So I'm happy to ask.
Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Mr. Judge. I feel very strongly that we owe it to the citizens to stick up for them. I mean, we have heard this previously and made a decision about this. Now, if we're not empowered to make these decisions on conditional uses, we either need to rewrite the ordinances on conditional uses or quit hearing them. Because it's important that the public have elected officials to go to when they have a problem in their neighborhood, and they came to us. And we listened and we responded. And I think we owe it to the citizens to support them and our decision. And if there's something wrong with our ordinance, let's fix it. Or if there's something wrong with a judge's decision, we need to challenge that then, because it's our responsibility. And we can't continue to just roll over on these or anything goes in the county. Thank you.
Thank you. J.P. Bowman.
Thank you, Mr. Judge. You know, I'm pleased to hear these comments tonight because I've been working with the judge, our attorney, and our chief of staff. We've contacted the Northwest Arkansas Planning Commission. We're talking to them about all these things. We're reviewing this thing in detail. And the judge will tell you that I've been a real problem hassling him about we got to get this done because we haven't had a case yet that we voted one way or the other that we didn't get sued on and lost. We have consistently lost. So it makes no sense for us to continue this process without some modification to the process. So just believe me, we're working together to try to get this thing done, and we'll have a proposal for you very soon, I hope. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to table. Ms. Patty, you want to do a roll, and then we'll go back and take the original motion depending on outcome.
Andrea Jenkins.
Yes.
Suki Hires.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Willie Lemming.
No.
Ann Harbison.
No.
Butch Pond.
No.
Lance Johnson.
No.
Susan Cunningham.
No.
Harvey Bowman.
No.
Patrick Deakins.
No.
Lisa Ecke.
No.
Sam Duncan.
No.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
So that does not pass. Okay, so we have the original motion by J.P. Pond, seconded by J.P., who seconded? J.P. Deakins. Any other comments? Public comments? Any public comments? Ms. Patty?
Andrea Jenkins.
This is on the motion to pass the ordinance.
That's correct.
Say what? Who was the second? I don't know that we have.
J.P. Deakins. The motion to pass the ordinance.
The motion is to pass this ordinance.
No.
Suki Hires.
No.
Sue Madison. Willie Lemming. Ann Harbison. Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
Yes.
Susan Cunningham.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Patrick Deakins.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Abstain.
Sam Duncan.
Yes.
And Eva Madison.
Yes. Or, sorry, no. No.
So
Didn't pass. That's at 10.
it gets,
It'll go on to a second reading.
We'll go, all right, so we'll move that one to next month. Item 11, J.P. Harbison, will you introduce the ordinance? No, we're on 10, I'm sorry, we're on 10. Am I doing that one? 10, we have a appeal. Is he here, Mr. Smith? Yes. Come on up.
No.
We're going to have the planning board. Okay, planning's on first, and then you can come. Nathan? This is Ms. Towing, recovery impound of Ms. Cedar, conditional use permit, so you go ahead and walk us through that.
Sure thing. Just a moment, please. All right, so Smith Towing and Recovery Impound Conditional Use Permit. Josh and Amanda Smith are the applicants for the Smith Towing and Recovery Impound CUP.
Pull the mic closer to
Oh,
your mouth.
sorry.
Yeah.
Is
There
that
you
a
go.
little bit better?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. The project came before the planning board on March 28th. After the staff presentation and the public discussion period were over, planning board member Philip Humbard motioned to approve the project. Planning board member Neil Helm seconded, and chairperson Randy Laney asked for a roll call. Mr. Humbard and Mr. Helm voted for the project, while the remaining 5 members voted against. The motion failed to pass. Walter Jennings motioned to deny the CUP, and Joel Kelsey seconded. 5 board members were in favor of denying the CUP, and 2 were against denying the CUP, so the motion passed to deny the CUP. On April 22nd, the Smiths filed an appeal. Planning staff received a copy of the appeal the next day. The Smiths stated there was no reason given by the board members for denying the CUP. Though the planning board minutes were not available, staff did recommend that the Smiths view the Washington County YouTube recording, which was posted that night. Staff supplied the link to the specified video along with the times the planning project started and where the planning board discussion of the project started. The minutes were not available because they were still being transcribed, and the minutes still needed to be approved by the planning board. The approval usually occurs during the next consecutive meeting. Using a combination of the planning board minutes and the YouTube recording along with staff notes, planning staff noted that planning board member Walter Jennings voiced his concerns about the water quality and environmental concerns due to leaking vehicles, and that the fencing requirement for the applicant called for fencing of 3 sides instead of the 4 for the project parcel. And so this brings us to now. Here is the presentation that was presented to the planning board on March 28th. So this project is located just west of Winslow along Wind Creek Road, Washington County 228. As you exit I-49, you'll head west and then turn north along Wind Creek. The site is the first driveway on the right. Josh and Amanda Smith would like to use this 1-acre parcel as a towing and impound recovery yard. There will be a total of 2 employees, which are the applicants, though there will not be an employee on site unless there is a vehicle being impounded or released. The average time spent per vehicle, according to the applicant, is approximately 30 minutes at a time. The applicant has cleared a majority of the trees on about half an acre of the property to make room for the towing and impound yard. Also, per the Arkansas State Towing Board, a small metal sign measuring approximately 24 by 30 has been placed on the fence to specify this is a towing yard. The fence is currently a work in progress. The applicants state that they will construct the fence to be about 8 feet tall with an additional 3 feet of barbed wire at the top of a 2x2 woven wire. They will also install metal sheeting to help obstruct visibility of the vehicles from the road. This red line, which is kind of hard to see, but it's in the middle of that picture, is where the Washington County Road Department right-of-way is. In the distance, there is a white flag showing where a Washington Water Authority water main is, and it's kind of center, middle, third of this picture. So here is a close-up of that water main. Washington Water Authority is requiring that the applicants encase the water main to protect it during the driveway compaction and from the heavy tow trucks and other vehicles that will cross it possibly multiple times a day. This particular portion of the water distribution system services approximately 100 customers, including Devil's Den State Park. Here is a study that Washington Water Authority did to find the water main on the Smiths property. I've highlighted Wind Creek Road right-of-way in red. The bold blue dashed line is the 8-inch water main. Washington Water Authority has also considered other forms of protecting the water main, such as steel sheeting as opposed to concrete encasing. At the time of this presentation, engineered stamp plans had not been submitted to Washington Water Authority for their review or approval. The Washington County Fire Marshal has stated that the driveway must be 20 feet wide and compacted to 75,000 pounds. The turning radius at the driveway must have a 38-foot radius. The applicant has indicated on the site plan their intent to comply with the Fire Marshal's requirements. Ozarks Electric has stated that there is a 30-foot utility easement along the overhead line. The applicant does not plan on constructing a building or utilizing any type of septic. This is an image of the swale, which is a small ditch, facing northeast. And this is the swale facing southwest. And this is what the swale looks like after it rains. Again, this is northeast, and this is southeast. And this is the applicant's driveway. And here's another view of the driveway and the swale. These images were sent to the Washington County contracted engineer, Zach Moore. Mr. Moore stated that the swale alongside the road is not deep enough to fit a pipe underneath the driveway without substantial regrading of the roadside ditch. Therefore, allowing the swale to continue across the proposed gravel driveway and not be dammed up by the driveway will be a requirement. Staff feels that items 1 through 3 of the criteria for allowance of conditional uses have been met. Items 4 through 7 are more subjective in nature. On March 7th, staff mailed a total of 8 notifications. The parcels in purple represent the neighbors within 300 feet of the applicant's proposed project whom received a notification. The applicant's project is blue. Staff received a total of 17 notifications in return. The purple circle represents a half-mile radius from the project parcel. The blue circle represents a 1-mile buffer. Staff was unable to map one of the notifications due to a lack of address, and some of the neighbors represented multiple parcels. Here is a close-up of the half-mile buffer. All the comments staff received were opposed to the project. The comments stated concern about diminished property value, that the vehicles towed into the yard will leak chemicals that are environmentally hazardous. There are wells nearby that are still being used for drinking water. The comments stated safety concerns if the owner of a vehicle gets disgruntled that their vehicle has been impounded. The yard will also start to look like a junkyard. Also, what happens to the vehicles if they are not claimed or recovered? Where do they go? The proposed metal sheeting fence will be an eyesore. Some comments voiced concerns that the business is being placed in a heavily agricultural and residential area. The nature of the towing and recovery business is a 24-hour operation. There were concerns about noise from towed and or impounded vehicles being placed in the yard during the quiet night hours. This is the current view, or at the time the current view, for the surrounding neighbors. In assisting with the visual mitigation of the towing yard, opaque privacy fencing screening must be placed on the east, north, and west sides. Plans for the screening must be submitted and approved by the planning department. In addition, a landscaping plan must be submitted and approved. No inoperable vehicles may be visible from the county road. The site must also remain generally neat and organized. Staff withheld recommendation of the proposed Smith Towing and Recovery impound CUP request due to the controversial nature. Staff urged the planning board to listen to the support and opposition in order to determine whether or not the project has met the compatibility requirements. And the next few slides just go over what the conditions are. And if there were any changes to the conditions, they were highlighted in red, and there were a few changes. Any questions?
J.P. Harbison.
How many people are on the planning board?
7.
7?
7.
I thought there were only 5. Were there
7.
only 5 present at that hearing?
At that hearing, there were 7.
If it was 5 to 2,
Any other questions from Ms. Sita?
I do have a question.
J.P. Hires.
Thank you. I was reading in the minutes that the Planning Commission stated that staff is unsure that even with the proposed conditions, that this project can meet the goal of the county land use plan. Can you go into detail about what that means?
The county does have a land use plan. We have not used it too extensively, just because of the nature of our projects. There is a light commercial, and this might fit into it. However, that would require a lot of mitigation. Staff did not think at the time that even if we added a whole bunch of trees or shrubs, that it would mitigate the concerns of the nearby property owners due to noise, the potential for chemical pollution from the leaking vehicles.
J.P. Jenkins.
Thank you. I have a question. I drove by the location, and did you say that it included in the conditional use permit to build a privacy fence around?
Opaque fencing, such as the metal sheeting would be considered opaque fencing.
Okay.
Something that they can't see through, or people couldn't see through.
The fencing right now I consider almost an eyesore. It's kind of like put together shoddily.
Yeah, it's temporary fencing just to kind of.
So that is temporary.
Yes.
And also the spot that I saw, is it going to be extended off? Are they wanting to clear more of the woods?
At the time, I honestly do not know. There is fencing in the back, but I'm not sure how large. Oh, excuse me. The actual impound area is, but the property itself is an acre.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Judge. I'm looking in the material you provided about the state fire code. Has the county fire marshal signed off on this?
No, no one has signed off on any of this because it went straight into appeal. So nothing's been signed off. There are no approvals written. Nothing. The planning board denied it. So.
Okay, so they still have that hurdle to go through, no
Yes.
matter what.
Yes.
Okay, and it says, and staff is withholding a recommendation, the project. I think there's something missing there, but. And then it says staff will make a recommendation with the following conditions at the planning board meeting.
We withheld a recommendation at the time of the planning board report. And then once we realized how more controversial this was going to be, we withheld a recommendation just in general at the planning board meeting.
So if you get a controversial proposal, you're going to withhold making a
Not
recommendation?
always.
I don't like that logic.
Not always. That was my personal opinion. At one point, I wanted to represent my clients, but then I also felt like I needed to represent also the opposed property owners, which put me in a really strange spot. So I thought maybe if I just withheld my recommendation, I would be able to better serve both my applicant and my opposed neighbors.
I think your job is to represent the best interests of the people of the county.
Which is both people.
At some point, you have to make a
and-
decision. I don't think it does us a lot of good to have a planning staff that won't make recommendations, and I'm
Madison.
seeing a pattern here. So, as of now, do you plan at some point to make a recommendation?
We have been
or-
making recommendations.
order.
Our last meeting, we made
Yeah, J.P. Madison.
recommendations.
That's all I have, thank you.
J.P. Madison.
I guess I'm really confused because given that if we go against the planning staff's recommendation, we lose in court. And now you're not giving us a recommendation. And we're told we have to rely on professional guidance. So I don't have any idea what we're supposed to do here. Because, I mean, we thought we had written an ordinance and we've been following that ordinance. And yet now we're being told, well, no, you're not actually legislating, you're just administrating. And so, I mean, I'm at a loss as to what to do because the planning board turned it down, but I don't think the planning board's decision carries any weight in court. It's your recommendation that carries weight in court. And this is now the second time in a row we're not getting one. Do you see the frustration? It's because if we go against what planning staff recommends, we're losing. because apparently our decision as the elected people doesn't matter. But now you're not giving us a recommendation. And so I don't have any idea how we're supposed to comply with these court decisions if we're not getting any guidance from our staff. I mean, if I were a citizen on either side of this issue right now, I would be ready to just say I give up on county government, because this is incredibly frustrating. I mean, if you're the applicant or you're the opposition, for this to be what you get when you come to the county?
Point of order, you're the for or
Yeah.
against, but don't reprimand. Thank you.
I think it's a
Point of order.
legitimate, okay.
This
all
is
right. I
this
think
is
it's a leg-
frustrating, Judge,
I
and
got you.
perhaps it's a complaint addressed to you
It
because
is.
the
It
staff
is,
is
and
not
I
making a
think-
recommendation.
Now, here's where J.P. Bowman has made a comment that he really has, and we have been working with regional planning, our planning team, because this process does not serve our applicants or our neighbors really well. No matter who, you guys can support the neighbor and we get sued, you guys can support the neighbors and we get sued. So there's something that we have to do about the process.
But we
So we're
have to be
working
able
through
to
that.
rely on the professional judgment of our staff.
We're-
That's
and
why we
what we're
have
working
them.
on, and that's what we're working on. So we will work through this, but here's where we are right now until that process and that ordinance comes back to you guys to make a decision on how we move forward with our planning process.
Because in the past, it's always been staff.
That's correct.
Staff's they can say absolutely not, this doesn't fit at all. This does fit as proposed, or we recommend approval with conditions, that they be able to say, put up an opaque fence, put up some trees, have no lights after 11 p.m. or something like that. And that's the way we've always been able to do it. I know people who've been on the court longer have done this. I know J.P. Ecke has done these. Certainly J.P. J.P. Pond and J.P. Harbison. I just don't know why it's become so hard, but they're always going to be controversial. So
That's right.
we're going to have, and I don't know that changing our ordinance is necessarily, I think a first step is that we're going to have to get advice from the planning staff, Judge, and you're going to have to help us get that.
J.P. Duncan.
In your opinion, are the water quality and pollution concerns valid?
Yes, they are, because as of right now, there are no plans to mitigate that. I mean, if there is a car that is pulled into there that's leaking or a slow drip, it's going to go straight into the ground because there's nothing there to catch it. There's I think there's a creek that's kind of behind, and then there's a creek across the road, and then there are wells within like 2-3 minutes walking distance of this property, that can stand to be polluted.
Thank
J.P.
you.
Lemming.
Well, I think you're blowing it out of proportion on the leakage. And when you have a wreck in the middle of the road, 90% of the time it's in the middle of the road. You clean it up in the middle of the road. You take a car out there, it's got 10 gallon of antifreeze, 90% of it's already gone. You've got an oil pan that's got a hole in it that holds 3 gallon. You're blowing that out of proportion. Yeah, he does have a muddy mess. Yeah, he does need to change some things, and we need to hear his side of the story. But this whole deal, we're making a mountain out of nothing. A locket pin is nothing. I own one. I know how it works, and all this stuff we're saying is crazy. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Cedar, J.P. Harbison, and then we'll have any of the public agencies who are here to come up, and then we'll have Smith come up. J.P. Harbison.
Well, I have two things, because I don't understand why our ordinance is not standing up in court, because it's always stood up before. When we did the cell tower on out east of Prairie Grove, we denied that. And so it went to circuit court. And we stated the same things in our ordinance, and we won.
Judge, point of order, is this particular conversation germane to this specific?
No, but it's germane to the discussion of why we are not winning these things when we have in the past. And we have the same ordinance. All right, that's my first comment. My second comment is that we've had some conflicts in the planning department, a personality conflicts, that have resulted in some things that should not have happened on both sides, okay, which has made this kind of difficult. Basically, this area is already commercial. It has a liquor store, grocery store on the same parcel of property, and that property has been split now. So that property is already commercial property. It's in a close distance to Highway 49. If this goes in, and if we go on and approve it, it definitely will have to have some conditions in shielding it from the neighbors. There's only really one neighbor, Mr. Clem, that's really close to this area that they're going to put wrecked cars in. And Mr. Lemming is correct. That could be taken care of, all the fluids that are coming out of the cars. I just, not because it happens to be someone I know, and I know all the neighbors also, but, I want to encourage businesses out in the county, and this is a small business. And I think that we need to look at it as that. Yes, there are other wreckers in Brentwood and West Fork and in the town of Winslow. But, competition helps everybody.
Thank you,
So,
J.P. Iverson. Okay.
That's, I just think that we need either to table this or go on and approve it with a lot of conditions, environmental things, trees to shade,
Okay.
lights, drainage. The drainage problem can be fixed. All of these things can be fixed. So,
Okay,
we
J.P.
need to
Iverson.
move on. Thank you.
Do we have any of the public health agencies, any of the agencies here to speak about the project? Department of Health or Fire Marshal? Anyone? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Sita. At this time, then, Mr. Smith, you can come up. Come on.
Technical issue.
Okay. JP, go ahead, JP Lemming.
I know the fire marshal's been out there and looked at this, but there is no reason to ask this guy to compact a road that'll hold 73,000 pounds when his records don't weigh 26,000 pounds. We can take you on a lot of county roads and a lot of places that's not compactable to that weight limit. So I just don't understand why we're recommending this guy to do that whenever he's not even going to be in that category. Thank
Okay.
you.
Let's just continue on without what.
Do you need to show anything, or are you just going to be making comments?
I just had a couple of, if you go back in my.
Go ahead, sit down, tell us who you are, and
I'm Josh Smith, owner of Smith Towing and Recovery. I've just got a few pictures that I'd like to give you guys. Mr. Clem, when we was in our planning board meeting, talked about a two-story home that he's got a deck on. And I've got pictures of the house. It has
Chief,
no
will you
siding
pass-
or
will you-
nothing.
Will you give those to?
This other one is a picture looking toward the camp's property from the impound. That's out the back of it.
Say it again. What were the pictures? Go ahead and say it in the microphone.
The other picture is looking out the back of the impound toward the camp's property. You can't even see their property from there. And then I've got one more here that's Smith Barker Mini Subdivision. Shows on that parcel that land is commercial, and it was actually signed off by the Secretary of State in July of '09 for commercial property, and I've got a copy of that as well. But the whole thing here, and you've seen the pictures, then they do look bad, but I tried to follow the county's rules whenever me and Nathan had our dispute. I went back, I paid my money, I did what I was supposed to. But they instructed me to stop working on that. And what I was told, if I kept working on it, that the Quorum Court would deny it. We moved all the cars out of the impound. There's currently nothing in there. It hasn't been in use. And I mean, it's just like Willie Lemming said, it is an impound lot. There's nothing there that's going to hurt the environment. The beer store across the road, their septic runs right in that holler that's right below me. So, you know, that's polluting the water, then septic's in the ground. And I did have just a few things to hit on to go over here. We spoke with the planning board, or the planning commission, and they could not give me one solid reason that this was not passed. I asked them in an email, my wife did, and they said they thought it was over environmental issues. But they never gave us a solid reason why that the planning board denied us. So I think on the Freedom of Information Act, that's supposed to be done within 72 hours to tell me why that this was denied. And it's not, you know, I want to use mesh netting, which is black. You can't see through it. It'll cover my gates. It'll cover the fence. You can't see through it. If the wind's blowing, it's not going to have sheet iron banging and beating. But we haven't done any of that. We haven't done nothing on the road. Washington Water Authorities does have a line that runs through there. Yes, they do. And we did have some discrepancies with them, but they have no easement. Their easement's on Bethlehem Road, not Wind Creek Road. But I have spoke with Chief Gales, and we come to a resolution on the driveway. I did bring a note to the planning board that from the fire department at Winslow, they will not fight a fire on the driveway that impound. They will not do it. They'll fight it from the county road because you don't pull your fire truck down on top of a car burning. And it's good for Interstate 49. You can look at our Google reviews. We have good reviews. We help a lot of people. We work a lot of car wrecks there with state police. And the cars don't typically sit very long. If they've got full coverage insurance on them, they don't sit long at all most of the time. If they don't, I have to wait 30 days and keep it impounded 30 days per the state to be able to get a title or whatever to be able to move the car out. Fatality wrecks, sometimes they'll sit for a while. But other than that, it's not going to be a salvage yard. It's not black mesh netting will cover the cars. And it's nothing. There's no buildings, there's no nothing. Mr. Clem asked us, and he said in my planning board meeting that he didn't want the fence on the property line, and he asked us to put that there. He actually had me dose some trees that was on his property and kind of clean some of it up, and he was over there laughing, cutting up with us and everything while we was putting the fence up, and he knew what we was doing, and he wanted it on the property line so there would be no discrepancies, and I've got witnesses to that worked on this fence with us. And you know, you can't see it. He's the only one that can see it unless you drive by it. There's no one to the south of it. The beer store sets, you can't even see the beer store from it. Camp's property, you can't see their property from it. They said they 75 yards from it in my planning board. I don't know if any of you guys watched that video, but that's false. So, I mean, the big deal with me is I'm here to appeal it, and I would like to get it passed for us to use. I mean, I pay the taxes on the property. It's my property, and it's commercial property.
Okay. J.P. Pine.
Mr. Smith, would you think it would be unreasonable request to add to the conditions that you would drain the fluids from the vehicles you're going to store on that property?
Yes, because when I pull those cars in there, it may be 2 o'clock in the morning, it may be 1 o'clock in the morning. You never know what time you're going to be there. So for me to sit here and say, yes, I'm going to give you my word that I'm going to drain all the fluids out of them, no, I can't do that.
Maybe the next day or whenever.
Well, if
Okay.
somebody gets arrested, you got arrest vehicles and stuff like that you're not, I mean, no, I'm not going to drain the fluid out of them. Most of your fluid leaks on the highway. If anybody's ever busted a radiator to a car, your fluid goes on the highway. It's not, that car's not still leaking fluid when it gets to the impound. You may have a drip or two here and there, but it's not like throwing 5-gallon antifreeze out on the ground. That's on the highway. You know,
Make
that all happens
note
there.
that I agree with you on that issue. We're not out shop vacuuming when there's a wreck.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes.
JP Hires.
I went out and visited your site this week, and but I also went and visited with some of the neighbors as well. I'm just curious that if this were to pass, if you would find it unreasonable for Mr. Clem, at least, to create a privacy fence of sorts, not just black mesh, because when I went to his house, that's all I could see from any aspect of his backyard. It's very much changed the character of what I saw in his property. So just wanted to, in a matter of good faith for your neighbors, if this were to pass, if that would be something that you would consider to do.
Well, when we built the fence and Charlie wanted it on the property line, he asked me if I was going to put some kind of privacy up there, and I said yes. So can I go back out there and run another privacy fence? No, I can't, because I'm on the line where he wanted the fence, and that makes it a discrepancy. But you know, the black netting, you can't see through that black netting. You know, it looks a whole lot better than sheet iron, to me.
JP Jenkins.
Thank you. In my case, I've seen the black netting and it gets weathered easily and stringy. Do you plan to replace that as it gets weathered?
If you buy the polycarbonate, it won't do that.
Oh, okay. So that's
It's
what you
got a lot
plan on
longer-
purchasing for the fencing?
Yes, it's got a lot longer life. I think it's got a 10-year life outside versus the cheaper stuff.
Gotcha,
It's
because I
not-
have seen the stuff that just
Yeah,
strings
it'll-
off and
yes.
off of the fences.
Yeah.
And also, so do you plan on expanding what is already out there, the area that you have fenced out?
No, that's as big as it's gonna be. That's it.
as big as
That's
it's
all
gonna
of it.
be?
Yes.
And do you plan on keeping the fencing that's already there and just adding the?
Yes,
the
the netting just rolls around the fence. It's
Gotcha.
6 feet tall, and it just goes all the way around the fence, and 6 feet will come to my first strand of barbed wire. So, I mean, if you're driving in a car, you're not gonna see it, you know.
And you plan all the way around to do it all the way
Yes,
around?
my gates will be done in it, everything, yes.
Thank you.
JP Duncan and then JP Lemming.
If you guys have seen like the Blessings golf course, it's the same netting they have at the Blessings in Pinnacle. I mean, it's like, it looks nice. It's the best option, I think, so.
It's better than sheet iron.
Yeah.
JP Lemming.
Has anybody from the state mentioned to you that the Beautification Act requires you to put a fence you can't see through?
No.
Well, I think if your neighbors ask the state, they'll make you do that.
Okay.
If you're close to a highway, a major
Right.
highway.
Yeah, I'm off the highway, though. You
How
can't
far are
see-
you off the highway?
Half mile to three-quarters of a mile. It's quite a ways from the highway.
So you may
be
exempt from that, being that far off the road.
Yeah, you can't see it from the
JP
from the
Harbison.
highway at all.
Turn your mic on.
I'm going to go on and make a motion that we ratify this conditional use permit with conditions. And those conditions are.
Point of order, we
Yeah.
haven't even
We got-
finished
we
the
got
debate.
him.
We haven't heard the other
Now,
side.
Well, we had the planning. Okay.
no.
No, we
after
haven't heard
him.
from the
The
opposition.
opposition, yeah. It's coming. Any other comments for Mr. Smith? Okay, thank you, Mr. Smith. And now we'll hear from those who oppose or support. Those opposed or those support? Neighbors who oppose or those neighbors who support? Okay, come on.
Hello, Judge. My name is Tim Faubus. I live on Sycamore Farm Road, which is within that half-mile buffer that was shown on the map. I didn't receive a notification or request or anything like that, but I just wanted to make it known that I'm in support of Mr. Smith's towing and recovery, having his lot there. I understand it's still a work in progress, and I have full faith that if you guys get this passed, that he will fulfill his end and make that a profitable place and a benefit to our community.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other comments? Any other comments?
Thank you, Judge. My name's Lorraine O'Neill. I live in Fayetteville, and I have worked for a towing operation, and I know some of the problems that you encounter. But anybody who has a business where cars come and go, you cannot control the amount of liquids that drip out of those vehicles that come into your place of business, and this would be no different. The issue of fluids leaking into the ground, I think, is very insignificant. Thank you, and I support Mr. Smith running this operation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Judge,
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Lester, ladies and gentlemen of the court, it's just been 32 years since I've been before the quorum court, so I don't really know how I'm supposed to act. I'm sorry. Anyway,
you.
I'm here on behalf of George Smith. I don't know any of the details. I just know that they've got the best record service that we've had in South Washington County in years. Talked to a trooper last week, and he said others records, if it's over a cliff or down a canyon, they'll turn it down. Said this kid, he calls him a kid, said this kid and his crew comes out, they've never turned down a call, and they've surfaced every car or truck that they went to get. And I just hope that if there's any way that he can keep in business and make a living. That's all I've got to say.
Thank
And
you.
it's good to see all of you.
It's good to see you. Thank you.
I'm Amanda Smith, the other side of Smith Towing and Recovery. There was a few things that wasn't mentioned. So Nathan and my husband did get off on the wrong page. Nathan was excused from the case. And as you can see in the YouTube video that was posted, Nathan was still helping CETA with the case. And that could be some of the reason why they chose to stay unbiased. When I spoke with CETA on 4/15, she said that she could not tell me why, that she had not heard from the planning, and that they would let me know. As of today, I have still not heard from CETA. Nathan had also, I had requested a 911 address out there. After I did a full circle review, and it was denied the first go-around, I went back through all of the motions to get the 911 address, and it came back to Nathan's desk. And I have email where Nathan said that since we are now on the same page and we are now getting along, that he would approve the 911 address. So my question is, Nathan was excused, Nathan still had influence. The land was already commercialed back in '09, before we acquired the land. The county since had went back and turned around and rezoned just that one section, because the beer store and this land was all in one parcel. So when it got split, that's when I guess they rezoned it. I'm not 100% sure when the rezoning was, but it went all the way up to get commercial before. We have been in compliance. We were asked to move all of the vehicles out of there and cease operation by Mr. Lester and his team. We did. There's nothing in there. There's a piece of agricultural equipment, and the last I knew, Washington County was for the agriculture and residential. So that's the only thing in there today, is a piece of equipment for forestry. The fencing has not been done because we were asked to quit. We had put in the letter that we were going to use sheet iron, because in the planning meeting, they asked us to use something for privacy. And the planning, Mr. Nathan, in there, again, had said we could use that most tow yards have the sheet iron, so that's why we put that in there. But there again, it hasn't been done because we ceased after being asked to. And there is also no other wreckers in Winslow that carry the insurance that we do carry to work with the state police. So there is only 3 within Greenland, West Fork, and us that are on this Arkansas State Police rotation because of the insurance purposes. We took the position of Dewey's wrecker service, so it was Drummond's wrecker service. There was in some of the letters that the community said there was Dewey Drummond. Well, he is no longer towing cars for individuals, and we took his position with the Arkansas State Police. And that's all I have.
I want to make sure it's not counting
Thank you,
against
Madison. I'm
anybody's
sorry.
time. Thank you. Okay. I'm curious what you meant by Nathan was excused. What does that mean?
Josh and Nathan had a conflict, and Nathan was asked to be excused from Josh's case.
By whom?
Your judge, because it was a personnel matter.
Okay. Were you operating before you had all the proper requirements?
We were, because there again, the Arkansas State Police had asked us to put it in, and by ignorance on our part, we did not know the rules. We didn't know what we were supposed to do. All we knew is Arkansas State has certain rules, which is the fencing. We got it passed through them, and we thought we were good.
How long were you operating without the proper permits? I'm addressing this lady. Okay.
I don't have my documents in front of me to be able to clearly give you a definite answer.
More than a few weeks?
Absolutely.
Okay. May I ask the county attorney a question here?
Go ahead.
Okay. If this were to be approved, will there be another round with planning to specify some of these, or they're good to go with whatever? Because people keep saying that they'll do this and do that, but if there's no requirement, I think if we give permission, they've got a green light as soon as the thing's passed. Is that correct, Mr.
I
Lawson?
believe, this doesn't require large-scale development, Nathan? No. So if this was passed, they would have permission. Now, you have the same power that the planning board and the planning department does to pass with conditions. So you can pass this with certain conditions that would be applicable to them.
Do we have a motion on the floor?
No.
No.
Okay, that's all.
JP Harbison.
I definitely want some conditions in this when we get ready to make the motion, and I want it to look good, and I want it to be efficient, and I want it to take care of the drainage problem. So anyway, those will be some of the conditions.
I forgot to add, there is gravel in the impound lot. So if there was to be, you can't take all the fluid from every vehicle. Understand? I get it. But you can't, legally, it's somebody else's vehicle. We have possession for it for a short amount of time. I can't go out there and drain somebody's fluid just because it was towed in. But if there was to be leakage, there is gravel there. And that would catch some. But it's not going to be any different than any other tow yard.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Manning. Thank you. Any other comments?
My name is Daphne Walker. I'm from Briarfield, Alabama, and I own the 29 acres that's directly across from this. Well, directly across from it is a small slice that goes through my property that belongs to the Pinions, who do live there. And this is Mike Pinion back here, and he and his mother, who is 87 years old, and they've been there since the 80s, that live there, and 2 trailers on that property, directly across. That, if you look at the lines on the property, the same lines that go on the pinions extend across, and that makes that little acre, okay? This property has been in my family since the 40s. Came from my grandfather, my mother, down to me. We've been in Alabama, but it became mine from my mother, and I have been interested in it all my life, and begged my dad to let me come to it and hike on it and whatever. And so I have been watching it. I've talked to real estate agents every few years. I talk to the Pinions every year when I come up here. I'm in Alabama most of the time, but I'm touching it, every year and waiting, and then was so excited when they put 49 through, because my property was no longer in the middle of nowhere. And if you look at that road, you'll see the Lord bent that highway right over near our little entrance. But they put and then it's on an exit. If you come off of that exit, it's the exit to the park. So it's a big exit on that road because it's the one going to the state park. And now they've built the lakes further down. They put the 2 lakes together, Lake Fort Smith and Shepherd's Lake, and are working on that recreational area. That side of town and down that highway stands to improve greatly, and some of those exits may then stand to profit by bigger things, Cracker Barrel, it would be nice, There's nothing out in that area for people, stores, and that sort of thing. The top part of my property that runs along from 74, where you turn off, my property runs to the left down to where it splits into Bethlehem and Wind Creek keeps going. And the top part of it is level and usable. The back part of Bethlehem is level and usable. I've been, waiting, watching, thinking of things I can do, and now have retired and can possibly start some more interest in it, or it becomes interesting to some things that can feed the community, like stores and whatever. But then I hear about this, and I'm like, what? Oh no! And I was in Alabama. I sent my son was coming back through, going to Colorado, and I sent him by to take pictures. And then I saw pictures of the fence, and I'm just like, oh no. So my questions to them, just to put out my little, soft story here, but is also I understand they own acreage other places, plus the acreage that they did this on was covered with bushes and trees and stuff. You couldn't see back into it, but yet they just mowed it all out to the front, and it's just right there in front of God and everybody. You could not see Mr. Clem's barn back there at all, because it was all this between it and the road, and now it's wide open. As you come down the road, you can see that. And I just, I talked to real estate agents and tried to find out how a person can, if there's any possible way a person can find someone who could pass or have a credible judgment on what an impound yard across from your property, how it affects your property values. I mean, we're just now getting property that's got some value, and now we've got something that stands to decrease that value, but I can't prove that because I don't know how you do a study on, the effects of an impound yard against somebody's property. But it's not very pretty right now. They could have gone back in there, and you would have not ever seen them if they left the bushes and the trees in the front and gone back into the middle of it with it. But from what I've seen so far, does not give me confidence that their thoughts will be sympathetic to the neighborhood with what they're doing. I understand. I love watching Rutgers myself. I'm proud that he's good at what he does and is willing to do the work. That's all great. But right now it's an eyesore on our area, and it doesn't seem to stand to help my property value go up.
All righty.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? All right.
My name's Daniel Smith. I'm on the Boston Mountain Fire Department, have been for 25 years. We run 200-plus calls on that interstate every year. So I want each one of y'all to think about this. If it's your loved ones out there that's hung up under a car, do you want them hung out there for 30 minutes, or do you want them hung out there for 15 minutes? Y'all answer that.
All right.
And Mr. Clem was there when we built the fence. Matter of fact, Charlie took us and showed us where the property lines were at. He even took his tractor.
Now, Charlie.
Clem.
Okay.
Took his tractor and slicked it all up when we got done bulldozing. Did you not, Mr. Clem?
No, that, you can't just address me, address the court.
And so his gripe is, I don't think he has one about it being built on the line, since he is the one that asked us to put it on the line. So there was no line discrepancies. And that two-story house that he said he lives in, he doesn't. He lives in the shop building behind it. The windows aren't even in that house that the light's supposedly shining in the windows on.
Okay.
And that's all I got.
All right, thank you. Any other public comments, for or against?
Hi, I'm Jackie Donaghy, and I live around the corner next door to the camps. That's my parents, and I'm sure the pictures that they gave you right now has leaves, and it looks really pretty, but guess what? In the fall and winter, there's no leaves, and you see it really well. I am concerned also with the environmental issues. I still believe it drips in the ground, and it causes serious problems. I'm also concerned about the cars being left there for amount of time. I was told at the last meeting that it was complaint driven to have the cars removed. It was there after 30 days. It was all complaint driven. And my question then was, how long after the complaint? We have a very nice area out there. It's very pretty, really residential. It looks really nice. And I'm like, Daphne, what does that do to our property values? Since, especially, we're trying to sell my parents' home. What's that going to do to our values? Now you've got this car, this wrecker, all night long going back and forth in front of the house. And honestly, it's not a half a mile. It's more like 1/10 of a mile. So the privacy fence, I think, does apply, and not the mesh. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm Mr. Clem. When they started that project, I did go over there and brush hog the right away. For years, I had 2 holes dug where the corners were. I didn't ask them to put it there. I told them them 2 holes were there. That's where the corner was for the county road, and that 1 acre lot that they built that on. That's another corner. I did not know they commercialized any of that land. I guess they done that, nobody knew it. But on that part of my 2-story house, I do have the windows in it. And I am planning on, just like Mr. Camp, selling that lot, that house, and my apartment. And I'm concerned too that the house is tall. It's like 7 blocks high, and then it's 2-story. And you will look right down into that impound yard. I don't care if it's 20 foot tall, you'll still see down in there. And I'm just wondering, kind of like the other lady that spoke, what it does to the real estate value. And another thing that hadn't been brought up yet, I know that you people are not making no big deal about chemicals dripping on the ground, just like it's no big deal. Well, that ground there is very porous, and Mr. Pinion, behind me here, he has a hand-dug water well. It's been there for ages, and that is his water source, and he's right across the road from this system. And the Smiths have a pond right next to their fence. Well, it ain't next to it, probably 40 feet away from it. And that is right in line with Mr. Pinion's water well. And I'm not saying it is for sure, but it kind of seem to think that that water that's going to the pond and it's in the well, it may be tied together. And, that's a risk you got to take, I guess, in doing something like this project. But as far as put that fence on the property line, I did not state that. I did brush hog it because it was pretty nasty. There was saw briars and stuff like that, and it wasn't real smooth either. And the code on commercial property in Washington County is 10 foot in from the easement, the right-of-way. So that's about all I got to say about it, but I have an apartment there, and it's a shop. It isn't not a barn, and my house looks like, my house, the two-story one, does resemble a barn. It's built like a barn. That's how I wanted it, and that's about all I got to say, but I am going to sell it, and I just don't know if that's going to turn people away, because most people that are moving out there are not moving out there to look at junk cars, and that's just the way it is. And like I said, it's going to make it harder to sell unless I just happen to catch the right guy that don't care. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clem. Any other comments?
My name is Dwight Camp, and I live on Devil's Den Road in the immediate vicinity of this project. I was at this first meeting. I strongly objected to it at that for all the obvious reasons for property value and noise and whatnot. I certainly haven't changed that any at all. You know, one of the issues that I have with this very strongly is the rule generally is that in an impound lot, in short order, that deteriorates into a salvage yard where they start stripping cars down, selling them junk cars. And I strongly suspect that if this is approved, the same thing would happen here. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Michael Payne, and I live directly across from the property in question. And just about my entire point is environmental. Like my neighbors have stated, I have a well that we use for drinking water and all other services, all other needs. And I also know that the effects on contaminants on the environment are accumulative. It's not just one drop here, one drop there. It takes time, and eventually you will contaminate the environment. Now, if we can guarantee to me that we will not contaminate the entire watershed of Wing Creek, then I will not oppose his business. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Payne. Any other comments?
Hi, thank
Hey.
you so much. My name's Valerie Jones, and I'm the president of the Warhorse Legacy Foundation. We recently received a donation of 140 acres across Devil's Den Road for our foundation and some of its programs, which provide equine-assisted activities for veterans and their families. So I'm really getting educated today on this issue. This is really the first time that I'm learning a lot of from both sides, and it does seem like there's going to be a tough decision to make. I also am concerned about the environmental impact long-term. That it is a watershed area on our property, which is just across which is 300 feet actually from their property line. It's just across Devil's Den Road. There are multiple creeks and beautiful water features. We've got a 70-foot waterfall. All of this water comes down the hill on the other side of the road and filters on down through the valley. It's a really beautiful area, and I think that's one of the reasons that a lot of my neighbors don't want this area developed a lot, because it is so beautiful and pristine, and that's why people live out there. My other concern is light pollution. You know, it's a wilderness area. We have a lot of wildlife out there, and I think when you were talking about earlier the conditions, that there was a clause about light pollution. So I would just like to say that I would like to see that addressed in the conditions if this permit is provided. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I speak one more time, Judge?
No, we already got yours. Anybody else, any other public comments? Any other public comments? All right, Quorum Court, your pleasure. J.P. Harbison.
I'm going to make a motion that we ratify this conditional use permit for Smith Towing and Recovery Compound with conditions. That it look good, that it doesn't look like a deer pen. I mean, they can go out there and make it look appealing to the public. It does not need to be an eyesore.
All right.
He needs to plant some trees between him and Mr. Clem. These are some conditions, and I think we need to look at somehow for him to recover fluids in some way. He may.
Okay, so bring it back.
Okay.
So what's your
My motion is that we ratify this with conditions.
Okay, now we need to know specifically what are those conditions,
All right.
so they know.
It must be screened in a pleasing manner, that we don't want old rusted tin nailed up.
Just stop, just your ordinance, that's all we're
Okay,
trying to
the
get.
ordinance, trees be planted to shield the compound from the neighbors. That will also shield any light pollution. You can get fast-growing types of trees.
Just keep going through your
Okay.
conditions.
We're gonna have trees. It's gonna look good. And we need something on the drainage to catch fluids.
And we need to know what that is.
Well, it could be a concrete pad.
Don't want to do that.
Don't want to do that? Okay, okay, tell me what we need to do.
First of all, you need to build a pad up high enough that
Come
water
on,
won't get on it.
we gotta get your ordinance. I mean,
Okay. It must look good.
I don't
It
know.
must follow all the county regulations. It must be shielded from the neighbors, which would take, and what I mean by shielded, that we need to plant trees, and it's not going to be shielded overnight. It will take 5 or 6 years to do this. But it can be done.
Okay,
So,
we got a motion.
that's my motion.
Second? Do we have another motion? We have a motion on the floor. J.P. Duncan?
So I can state a new motion, right?
Yeah.
I move that we ratify the conditional use permit with one condition to that the black netting be placed around the fence.
Got a motion on the floor to approve the conditional use permit with privacy black netting. We have a second by J.P. Bowman. Any other comments? J.P. Lemming.
I would like to know if Washington County, may be a Nathan question, has setbacks on the fencing. No setbacks?
Only structures.
Only structures. So therefore, the gentleman can build his fence on his property line and it's perfectly fine.
There's no setbacks.
There's no setbacks, okay. That was-
Any other?
And
We got a motion, we got a second by J.P. Bowman. Any other comments? J.P. Ecke?
I know that Mr. Phil Humbard is on our planning board, is that correct?
Yes.
He is retired from ESI Engineering, which he does water quality and water flow and water. If he approved it, then I trust his judgment. So I'm in support of this.
We got a motion, we got a second. Any other comments? J.P. Hires.
Thank you. There's still so many concerns that the neighbors have brought up, and that also the Planning Commission brought up as concerns that they had about this project. These include lighting, this includes landscaping, and this includes environmental quality. And so if we are not going to attach any of that or have them go back to the Planning Commission to deal with the concerns that the Planning Commission put in, I'm going to vote against this.
J.P. Pine.
Do we not have a set of conditions that the planning commission was working with this, on this project?
Just with Ms.
None.
Cedar shared.
None whatsoever?
Come on, Ms. Cedar.
Yes, we do. There are a set of conditions that the planning board had brought forward. Yes, ma'am.
That's correct. They should be in that planning board staff report that should have been sent to all of you towards the back.
Is there like a short outline of what those conditions are?
I can pull it up on the PowerPoint really quickly.
I think it's worthwhile to know what those conditions are.
Just fast forward. Oh, almost. Basically, it's to work with Washington Water Authority on that protecting that 8-inch water main because it services so many people, including Devil's Den. The water main needs to be encased at the owner's expense and under the supervision of the Washington Water Authority staff to make sure it's done properly. If it's exposed, basically it will be fixed, but at the owner's expense. Alternatives to steel encasement may be considered, and engineered construction details must be submitted to Washington Water Authority for consideration, meaning they need to approve it before it gets installed. Washington County Fire Marshal, basically general stuff, put the address on the gate so they can see it. Don't split or develop any further without contacting the fire marshal. There must be an engineered statement ensuring the driveway of the proposal is compacted to 75,000 pounds and submitted to the Washington County Sheriff Office Fire Marshal Division. The driveway shall be 20 feet wide with no turnaround required. The turning radius at the edge of the driveway shall be 38 feet, and then in red, so this was added after that staff report, the grade of the fire apparatus access road shall be within the limits established by the fire code based upon the fire department's apparatus. Any grade steeper than 10% must be approved by the fire chief. Ozarks Electric, these came later. Basically, just if you need electricity or if you damage or if you have to move it, it's at the owner's expense. Also, if there is a plat or something, it needs to be shown on that plat where the easements are. And then there's a 30-foot utility easement on the overhead line, and then contact if the applicant has any questions or concerns. Any work in the county right-of-way will require a permit. Please contact the road department. There is no parking in the Washington County roadway at any time. Drainage conditions allow the small swale to be continued across the proposed gravel drive and not be dammed up by the driveway. Environmental conditions, no stormwater permit is required at this time. However, if there is any ADEQ rules or regs, please comply. No signage is allowed within the Washington County's right-of-way. Lighting conditions, all outdoor lighting must be shielded from neighboring properties. Any lighting must be indirect and not cause a disturbance to drivers or neighbors. Additionally, all security lighting must be shielded appropriately, and there was an attached diagram. Screening conditions, opaque privacy screening plans on the east, north, and west sides of the project site must be submitted and approved. A landscaping plan must be submitted and approved. Landscaping must be well maintained. No inoperable vehicles may be visible from the county road. Planning conditions, for sale vehicles may not be placed on this site. The site must remain generally neat and organized. For sale vehicles may not be placed. in the Washington County right-of-way. The right-of-way must be kept clear from signage and other implements that may hinder the road department while performing maintenance. All of these conditions listed above must be met before any business may be conducted. And those were the conditions that we added to the CUP.
Okay.
My question would be, would the gentleman that's made the motion for this to be passed consider any of these conditions to be added to his motion?
I move to amend and include the conditions that were just read.
Okay, so state your motion.
I move that we amend to ratify, including the conditions made by the planning board.
Is that seconded? Is that second by J.P. Bowman? All right, any other comments? Public comments?
May I? Public comment on this.
All right, Ms. Patty?
No, hold on.
We got a first and second.
We have a motion, there's a motion to amend. We've
Oh,
got to
got
vote
one
on it first
amendment.
before we
I
get
got
to
it,
the
got it.
actual
You're
motion.
right, that's right. All in favor of the amendment?
Yes, you need to vote on the motion to amend. There's a motion to amend. It's gotta
All in
be
favor
voted
of the amendment? Those opposed? Okay, so now, Ms. Patty. You read the motion as amended.
This is an ordinance to ratify a conditional use permit originally denied by the Planning and Zoning Board with conditions, including the conditions set by the Planning Department and a privacy netting.
Okay, Ms. Patty. No, we did it, Bob. We got still more public comments? Oh. Did you have?
Sir, what agency is it that monitors and controls compliance of this project?
You've already spoken once. Sit down.
Who does this?
Ms. Clem, we'll visit with you. I'll visit with you. JP's, we had another.
I saw J.P. Bowman had his hand up.
J.P. Bowman, did you have a question? Did you have a question?
My comment was about the netting being included.
Okay.
And that is covered.
J.P. Lemming?
Thank you.
My comment was if we're gonna go back to what the county's required, that means they're gonna have to go ahead and do all that the Washington Water Authority wants them to do and everything that's in that conditional use permit. Is that true? Okay, all right, I'm just trying to
Call the question.
No, question's been called. You got to vote on it.
Ms. Patty, go ahead and do your roll.
This is to call the question in debate.
Did you
Call the question.
recognize, because we were in line to speak before the question
You
was
had a
called.
question?
No, hold on. He was recognized, he called the question. You've got to vote on the question
There has to
being
be a
called in
second.
ending debate.
All
There's
right.
got to be a second, and then you'll have to have at
All-
least 10 votes in favor of ending debate to call the question.
All right, all in favor of ending debate on this? Ending debate? Ending debate? Go ahead, hands, so we can see them. To end the debate. How many got? 1, 2, 6.
10, okay.
Okay.
Question's called.
All right.
Now we're voting on that. Now you're voting on the ratifying the CUP as read.
With the amendment. Go ahead, Ms. Patty.
Yes.
And you don't have to have public comment before?
No, we've ended that.
All right.
Point of
And-
order, we have to have public comment before we vote on any ordinance.
We had 30 minutes.
That is a rule that you have set, but you called the question, so the vote has to come.
No, the call to question is to end debate of this body. It is specifically on the agenda that before we would vote, there would be another session for public comment.
And that's why it takes a 10 vote, because you are amending your agenda to call the question. So it takes 10 votes, which it had, and so the question's been
Okay.
called and you have to vote on it.
Tone down a little bit. What I'm saying is we just amended what we were voting on. We imposed conditions that the public has not had a chance to comment on, and I think it would be a violation of state law for us to proceed to vote on basically a brand-new ordinance without giving these members of the public an opportunity to speak again. It's specifically on the agenda that says there will be a 12-minute comment period with a 3-minute limit for each speaker following deliberation of the quorum court. We can't vote to end debate of the public. We voted to cut off our own comments so that we can no
JP
longer
Madison.
offer our comments.
Duly noted, Madison. Public comments. Public comments?
Lorraine O'Neill, Fayetteville, Washington County, and I know this is a difficult decision. I've listened to all this, and I think that the amended portion that was set just a few moments ago is excessive. That it's ridiculous that all of these conditions be required by this fellow who is simply going to be running an impound yard for the benefit of the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comments.
On the, we talked about the 75,000-pound driveway. Is that still going to withstand? I mean, with mine and Chief Gale's agreement on that we had at the planning office?
Was that shared with the, Nathan, was that shared with the planning board?
No, is that in the?
Yes, okay, then that's fine.
Okay.
Any other public comments? Public comments? Okay, Ms. Patty.
Andrea Jenkins.
Yes.
Suki Hires.
No.
Sue Madison.
That's correct.
Willie Lemming. Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
Yes.
Susan Cunningham.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman. Patrick Deakins.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Chandra Washington.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
No.
Okay, that ordinance passes. J.P. Harbison, item 11.
Well, that's what we were.
Oh, 12, I'm sorry. J.P. Johnson.
So this will be on.
J.P.
Thank you,
Johnson.
Judge. Mr. Lester, would you read the ordinance by title only?
An ordinance appropriating $10,000 from unappropriated reserves in the general fund to various line items in the Quorum Court budget for 2019.
Yes, this is an ordinance that was requested by the administration, by the judge's office. There's a group of us who were invited to the Arkansas Association of Counties and National Association of Counties an event that's happening in Washington, D.C. next week. And this funds, if it is appropriated, this will cover part of the cost of the people traveling to that event, and I make a motion that we approve.
You got a motion and a second. Comments?
Yes.
J.P. Madison?
So in all my time on the court, we have never paid for quorum court travel. In my work for the State Association, I've always paid my own expenses. I find it really offensive that we raised the millage so that the quorum court could go on a boondoggle to the tune of $10,000.
Point of order, that is not germane to the agenda, and it has nothing to do with moondoggling.
Okay.
That is a red herring. Thank you.
We are paying $10,000 for everybody to go off to travel to Washington, D.C., to stay in a hotel, to go to the White House. And I guarantee you, had we proposed that in the Obama administration, there would have been a riot in the courthouse. I just want everybody to think, do you want your taxpayers paying for quorum court members to go off and with no apparent benefit to the county other than maybe the possibility that we'll beg somebody from FEMA to get us our money faster? I just think that that is not the purpose of the quorum court, and I think that if members of the quorum court want to go on travel, they should figure out a way to pay for it themselves. We don't get paid a lot, but we get paid enough to go do that, and I just do not think that after we raise taxes, we are sending people off on a trip. It's offensive to me. I mean, we've got people in the county that don't make a living wage, and this is how we're spending our dollars. It's offensive to me, and I will absolutely be voting against it.
JP Madison. Any other comments? JP Madison and then JP Pine.
Thank you. I voted against this in finance. This is not limited to a trip to Washington. I don't know where else people may be planning to go. This is not specified. I want to know where my money's being spent, where the taxpayers' money's being spent, and it's not clear from this very, very broad ordinance. And I've been to a lot of national meetings, and the chances of being remembered sometimes are not very high. I think as tight as money is in this county, this is an extravagance, and I will continue to vote no.
Thank you, JP Madison. JP Pine.
Yes, thank you. As tight as money is in this county, we receive and hopefully will receive quite a lot more grant money from the federal government. And I'm not going on this trip. Might be possible that I'm qualified to go, but I'm not going. But I appreciate that some of our new JPs are going on this trip. They'll be representing me, and I just I see the importance, and I don't care who the president is. The president has sent an invitation for these new JPs to go, and I think it's of importance that we don't just totally ignore this president's invitation. And I think it will account for something, and I believe there will be people there counting heads as to what counties saw fit that some of their elected officials had time to go and acknowledge that we were invited. I believe that it's a diplomatic kind of thing to do. I believe it's just something that gentle people, ladies and gentlemen, do.
Okay.
The polite thing to do, the proficient thing to do, the decent thing to do, whether I like him or not. Thank you.
Thank you, JP Pine. JP Jenkins.
Thank you, Judge. I just wanted to speak on, as an educator who attends plenty of professional development, it is a detrimental piece to growing as an educator, and as a new JP, I can see this being an extremely important piece to learning more about our county government and what we can do. The agenda is jam-packed with the Department of Agriculture, we've got U.S. Department of Energy, the Secretary of that. We've got it sounds like it's called one of the panels. It's Community Revitalization Panel, Disaster Recovery and Resilience Panel. I feel like we are going to greatly benefit from this, and it's something that I am very appreciative for having the opportunity. So thank you.
Any other comments? JP Duncan.
So there's over 40 attending from the state of Arkansas, newly elected officials. This is an Arkansas Association of Counties event. Again, a jam-packed agenda, but beyond that, this fund would also cover the AAC event in Hot Springs, Arkansas, the 21st and 22nd of August. So those funds would be there for that too. Yeah, I'm excited. This is a really cool opportunity. So thanks.
JP Ballman.
Thank you, Judge. You know, I think the real benefit of this is educational things like you're talking about. But interacting with our legislators in Washington, D.C. can have a dramatic impact on what happens in Washington County. And I think anything we can do to strengthen our position with those people is going to be great. I'm not going, but I appreciate those that are.
Any other comments? Public comments? Public comments? Okay, Ms. Patty. Oh, I thought you, I'm sorry.
I was standing
Uh-huh.
and to walk in. Brandy Weaver, and I am from Prairie Grove, Arkansas. I understand the importance of it. I have a problem with the financial part. The $10,000, that's a lot of money for our county. And we've got certain sources in our county who are under budget. I don't see spending that money on this trip. I don't see the importance of it when we have other areas that we're short on cash, that money can better be funded in our county. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Ms. Patty?
Andrea Jenkins? Yes. Suki Hires? Yes. Sue Madison? No. Willie Lemming? Yes. Ann Harbison? Yes. Butch Pond?
Yes.
Lance Johnson?
Yes.
Susan Cunningham?
Yes.
Harvey Bowman?
Yes.
Patrick Deakins?
Yes.
Lisa Ecke? Sam Duncan?
Yes.
Chandra Washington?
No.
And Eva Madison?
No.
That ordinance passes. Item 13, J.P. Ecke.
Thank you, Judge. I need to make amendment on this ordinance. And we need to strike dental from the ordinance.
I think just a Scrivener's error. I think, Judge.
Okay.
If we could, please.
Read the ordinance.
Judge, there's a Scrivener's error. It should say members in Article 1.
Article 1.
In Article 1. In
Oh,
Article
here
1,
we
it
go.
just says that the Quorum Court has one member.
Members, authorizes its members to purchase
Okay.
vision.
Got it. Okay.
Mr. Lester, will you read the ordinance, please?
An ordinance authorizing members of the Quorum Court to purchase vision, dental, and life insurance.
It's,
Take out dental.
take out dental, please.
An ordinance authorizing members of the Quorum Court to purchase vision and life insurance.
Thank you. This did pass at the AAC and at the legislature, giving, even though we are part-time employees, this opportunity. Nelson Driver's here to speak on the benefits that Washington County full-time employees, I shouldn't say enjoy, but are able to participate and glean from. And the reason we're striking dental from this is because, if you will, please, there's your
Well,
sign.
these
state
are
who you are.
extracurriculars.
Nelson.
I'm sorry?
Tell everybody who you are.
I'm Nelson Driver. I'm a risk management consultant for the county. One of these particular coverages are available for purchase by Washington County employees, the full-time employees that participate in the benefits program. There's no subsidization, from the county part on this. This is 100% paid for by the employees. A lot of these coverages, specifically dental coverage, is expensive. And the benefits that you receive from dental coverage in most healthcare plans like this are really not worth what you're paying for. You're paying $40 to $50 a month for $1,000 to $1,500 worth of coverage on the dental plan. Most professionals will tell you that you're better off putting that $50 a month in your savings account and paying for your dental procedures out of pocket. That's one of the reasons that they're really not worth the money that you spend on it. And I think that was one of the prime reasons that we talked about these particular benefit plans. You have to be careful what you spend your money on. The medical plans for county employees, for full-time employees, the health care and the pharmacy plans that are available to full-time employees are available to the Quorum Court members.
At retirement.
I'm sorry?
At the retiree
At the
rate,
retiree rate,
not
yes.
the current employee.
That, again,
Yes.
is not being subsidized by the county as well for elected officials. For Quorum Court members, excuse me. That is, I was trying to think, I don't have my numbers before me right now exactly what that cost is per month. I can get that for each one of you. Before you make a jump and get excited about that, I would like to share with you that those of you, and I'm not pointing fingers, that might be Medicare eligible, there's just not an easy way to say that.
Why are you looking at me like that?
Because I am one of those, okay? If you're Medicare eligible, you're much, much better off financially if you'll get a good Medigap coverage or Medicare assistance coverage, because it's less expensive and you get better coverage through one of those policies than you will by going on the county's plan. I've talked to a lot of the retirees, some of our elected officials that have retired in the last few years, and have advised them to go get a supplement plan and take a look at them. And most of them have come out a lot better, several $100s a month to the good by getting a good supplement plan instead of going on the county's plan. Those are some things that we can talk about if any of y'all are interested in that. I can get you the figures if you're interested in going on the county's plan. Now, unless you're retirement age, and these are some things we have to work out and think about, if you leave at the end of your term and you choose not to go back for reelection, or you're not reelected, then you would fall under COBRA with the health care.
Right.
That's the only difference really in that.
Thank you. When we first or made this ordinance, all the other counties in Arkansas don't have such a good insurance plan, and having the dental rolled into it like we do in Washington County. So kudos to you for handling that. So I move to pass, what is it, 12.1 or 11.1? 13.1.
Got a motion on the floor to approve the ordinance 13.1, second by J.P. Jenkins. Any other comments? Public comments? Any public comments?
Judge, could I make one more point in this? If y'all approve the ordinance, it would become effective at open enrollment this fall, which is in November, and the coverage would go into effect January 1.
Thank you, Mr. Driver. Ms. Patty?
Andrea Jenkins.
You're good. Driver? You're good.
Sure.
Thanks.
Suki Hires.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Willie Lemming. Ann Harbison. Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
Yes.
Susan Cunningham.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Patrick Deakins.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Chandra Washington.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
And that ordinance passes. Item 14, J.P. Harbison, will you introduce that?
Mr. Lester, would you please read 14.1 by title?
An ordinance changing the title of 3 full-time positions in the Roads Department budget for 2019.
All right, we passed this out of finance. The road's done some reorganization and combined some positions, and they will be a great benefit to the county road department. Therefore, I make a motion that we pass 14.1.
Second.
Been a motion to approve 14.1, a second by J.P. Pond. Any comments? J.P. Bowman.
Thank you, Judge. You know, I've been really hesitant about this whole thing. You know, everything I've heard so far sounds like we're going to have to spend between $100,000 and $200,000 to do this study. And second to that is
J.P. Bowman, this is.
What you did, this road department.
Oh, I'm
You're
sorry.
on
I'm ahead of
14.1.
you. I'm sorry.
Okay. Any other comments? Any other comments? Public comments? Any public comments? Ms. Patty?
Andrea Jenkins.
Yes.
Suki Hires.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Willie Lemming.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
Yes.
Susan Cunningham.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Patrick Deakins.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Chandra Washington.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Okay, that ordinance passes, 14-1. 15, J.P. Harbison, will you go ahead and introduce?
Okay, Mr. Lester, would you read the title of 15.1, please?
An ordinance appropriating $100,000 from unappropriated reserves in the general fund to the other professional services line item in the Quorum Court budget for 2019.
Well, I was going to amend this, but I don't think I will, because I really think it's important that we go on and pass this, because we have tabled the expansion of the jail. And this is going to address working with Judge Wood and trying to get someone in to come and evaluate the judicial system of Washington County. Now, this is just not the jail. It includes the other things of judges and prosecutors and public defenders of how we can improve the efficiency. Now, I think it's important that we go on and pass this. We cannot just sit here and not do anything. I think it's important that we have an outside source to make some recommendations. All of us on this court feel that we know what needs to be done. And we may be correct, but I think we must have an outside people to come in and make recommendations. I think it can be more efficient. We've got over 400 people and pretrial people in jail. If we could solve just this piece of the puzzle of the jail problem, it would be helpful. And I think we need to do this very quickly. We do not want to be responsible for someone in the jail getting hurt, whether it is our police officers or someone that's incarcerated there. Yes, we have an overcrowding problem, but apparently, I wanted to separate these out and do the jail expansion and do this too on the side, but this is not happening. So we've had some people in the community that have done extensive research on trying to decrease the number of people that might be in jail, that are in jail. They might be in jail. No, they're in jail. So I think it's important that we go on and give Judge Wood the opportunity to find a firm to do this evaluation. That is, if he's willing to do this. I mean, we'll discuss this tomorrow, but I tried to get in before, and this is basically what I wanted to discuss with you, because it's up to you to send out requests for people to come in to do this evaluation. So I'm going to make a motion that we appropriate up to $100,000 to do this study. But we can't wait a year to do this.
All right,
And
got a
I
motion?
know that, some of the firms said it would take up to a year. So I think we need to look at something that's much quicker than this, because we do have somewhat of a crisis on our hands. All right, I make a motion that we spend up to $100,000 to do an evaluation of the Washington County judicial system.
Got a motion on the floor and a second by J.P. Suki Hires. Discussion, J.P. Johnson and then J.P. Bowman.
Yeah, thank you, Judge. I've thought about this a lot since we talked at Budget and Finance last week. And the whole concept scares me to death, because what I think is we're going to get a study. Some of us are going to agree with some of the things. Some of us are not going to agree with some of the things. Most of them this court can't implement, even if we all agreed with them. And we're going to be sitting in the same place we are today. We just will have spent another $100,000 in 7 or 8 or 9 months talking about it. Thank you.
J.P. Bowman.
Thank you, Judge. I've been on the court for 6.5 years. and this can has been kicked down the road for at least 6.5 years. And we can't seem to make up our mind that we're going to have to do something. We've got one of the most respected law enforcement officers in Washington County of anywhere in the state. You know, we've been told that we're overcrowded, we're in trouble. We saw the shootings, we saw the beatings in the jail. We see release of 200 people per month out of there that would normally be staying. You know, if we're going to be doing a study, we've got to put a time limit on it so we can go ahead and pass an ordinance, passing this on to the public for a vote in next year's balloting. It will take at least 2 years to go ahead and get a jail built even after the vote. So we're talking about probably 3 years down the road today if we went ahead and passed this on to the public for voting before anything can get
Order,
done.
didn't this issue fail in committee?
Yeah,
Okay.
this is on the study.
On the study, I know.
Yes, okay.
I'm just trying to make the point that we've got to put a time limit on this thing.
Okay. Any other comments? Public comments? Oh, I'm sorry, J.P. Jenkins.
Thank you, Judge. We shouldn't be talking about the ordinance that has been squashed. I feel like we need to move forward from that as of right now. I feel like the study is extremely important for our county. I believe, though, from the input that we have gotten from the public, and I'm not sure how you feel about it, Judge, but I feel like the $100,000, it's all arbitrary right now anyway. It's not money we're spending this moment. So I feel like from what we have, from the studies and the research that our public has put extensive time and effort into, that $100,000 is probably not going to be enough. And I feel like we should amend it to at least $150,000. And like I said, it's arbitrary. It's not money we're spending until we find someone. So that's my opinion on it. Thank you.
J.P. Hires.
Thank you. I've said this before, I'll say it again. I think it would be incredibly unethical for us as a legislative body to shut down the jail expansion and not make moves immediately. I think the study is an excellent way to come up with creative solutions that can help us figure out ways to reduce the overcrowding in our jail. Thank you.
And J.P. Duncan.
I had the opportunity this week to meet with Nick Robbins with Returning Home, and was really impressed, obviously, by his presentation last week, and then also from the conversation we had. The more I learned about recidivism rate and how much of the issue is individuals returning to jail, and as I've talked to other officials across the state, it seems like this could be a really great opportunity for us to change how things are done and start here in Washington County. So I'm actually going to be voting against doing the study, but I think we have an opportunity to get something out quickly to Jail and Law Enforcement Committee to vote on. Thanks.
Any other comments? J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Judge. I think I've been an elected official in Arkansas for over 20 years now, and I've dealt with prison issues, jail issues repeatedly, and I'm not qualified to decide what we need to do about our jail. It's clear we need to do something. People sleeping on the floor is not a good idea. And we've had some excellent research and input from citizens that have spent a lot of time researching this issue and studying it. And I think we need to take a next step and have some professionals in the field look at our situation and tell us what they would recommend. We don't have to buy into everything they present to us, but let's have some expertise greater than what's just around this group here tonight. None of us are experts in incarceration rates or the best remedies for those incarcerated, and I think this would be money well spent.
J.P. Lemming, J.P. Bowman, J.P. Pond, J.P. Ecke.
I think we have professionals at our jail, and I think the people has done their own study, and I think they've done a wonderful job. And I think the money you're spending is a waste. If you want to gripe about $10,000, you're talking $150,000 you're just throwing out the window. So you can look at it several different ways, but I just believe the people that we got running our justice system down there is very professional and very good. A lot of these things we talk about, Sam's talked about this. I mean, what do we want to do, just raise the tax, raise $40 million, give this group 10, give this group 5, give this, I mean, it's the same difference. Let's get off the porch, let's do something. We've got to. Thank you.
J.P. Bowman, then J.P. Pine, then J.P. Ecke.
Thank you, Judge. The thing I'm telling you is, I'm not opposed to a study. I'm telling you, we've got to put a time limit on the study. If we turn this thing loose and we're going to say we're going to give them a year to make the study, then we're going to have to take it to the voters, even if it's approved. So I'm telling you, I'm not supporting this unless we put a time limit on it that we can get some information before the end of this year.
J.P. Pine.
I gotta say that the people who have come to us that have the most expertise actually are the people running the jail. You just cannot discount that. I don't need a time limit on this study that we're talking about here. But I do feel like you got several people here that are not going to make any kind of move unless there is some kind of study done. But I don't think that while you're in the process of doing that study, we ought to have any kind of much of a time limit at all on going ahead and as it's obvious, you can see it, we need it. We need an add a pod to that jail. They can study from here on out for 2 or 3 years from now, but in the meantime, we already need that pod. Thank you.
Thank you, J.P. Pine. J.P. Ecke, and then J.P. Madison.
I have been places that you wouldn't expect a conversation to pop up, but the reputation of our sheriff doesn't just go statewide. First year I joined the court, I was at a convention. Didn't have anything to do with Quorum Court. His name came up and they said his reputation from the East Coast to the West Coast in staff development and organization and in efficiencies and go on and go on and go on. And I was proud and I shared it with them. I'm proud of the elected official that the citizens of Washington County have elected and have confidence in. And then all of a sudden, people come in and disregard what he has established and has proven to be effective in the jail and are now trying to micromanage what's going on. I believe in citizen comment. I believe in having a voice. But if you're not willing to sit across the table from somebody and have a discussion and talk about options and make it about political grandstanding, I don't think that's right. I am not for this study because the value of those that are here and the studies that have there's a feasibility study that already has been done and was presented to this court, but it's being disregarded. And money was already spent on that. I don't know how much. Sheriff could tell you how much money the feasibility study was when I gave him the whole packet. He said, I think it was $67,000. Oh, yeah. And it was a 10 to 20-year plan. So we have information, we just need to read it before we spend any more money. I am not for this because of that. Thank you.
J.P. Madison, and then J.P. Lemming.
So my concern is that we keep saying that the sheriff is the expert, but the committee wholeheartedly rejected the sheriff's recommendation. The sheriff has been saying to us for months, said to the prior quorum court that we need to expand the jail, came to us with a proposal to expand the jail. We studied it and studied it and studied it, and the committee killed that proposal. The only feasibility study we've heard was from the construction company that wanted to build the addition, which I think we all recognize the bias in that feasibility study. The only alternatives other than the sheriff's expertise, which we've rejected, has come from this dedicated citizens who have committed their time to going around and meeting with judges and prosecutors and public defenders and sitting through 8.1 hearings and meeting with the sheriff and going down to the jail. They're the ones that have come to us with really great information. But we can't rely on citizens to be the ones to inform us. So we can say all we want that we have the expert. The committee rejected the expert's advice. So we now have a duty to do something else. And if we think that we have the expertise to do that, great, but we don't. We all know that. And so if we're going to act on the committee's decision, we have to do something. Returning home may be a great program. That's a small piece of the puzzle. And so I think we need to take this step, fund this, work with the sheriff to move this forward to figure out the best solution. But don't sit here and say that we have the best expert when we wholeheartedly rejected his recommendation. So, I mean, that's just not logical. So, thank you.
Thank you, Madison. J.P. Lemming.
I was just going to ask, is there any way we can go back to where we can charge the cities per day? If we're going to wait and kick the ball down the road 3 years from now, can we not go back and get that money so we quit having to fund the jail, put money in it?
And that's still going to, the presentation or agreements will be for them to look at deficit gaps that we'll have in the jail, and then they would pay per population. That's
Per
going to be an
capita.
agreement. Per capita.
That's what we've
Exactly
talked about in the
right.
past.
That's
But
correct.
I think if we're going to do the study and take our time and keep traveling, I think we need to move on with that and kind of get some money coming so we'll
Yeah,
have to quit
it
taking
doesn't have
out.
to be one or either or. You can do that as well as. So
Okay,
that's
okay,
good.
thank you.
Public comments.
Hello, my name's Carol Witter. I'm a retired special education teacher, and I've been a community member for 45 years. And so I just wanted to speak to this study, and I have some information for you. We need a really strong relationships and mutual respect and strong community engagement if we want our county government to work. We all need a voice and a seat at the table in making decisions about our own community. That's why I'm thrilled that the Quorum Court has agreed to consider to stop and listen and study our current criminal justice system. We can develop trust through ongoing partnerships, transparency, and open and regular communications. It's critical. This is our community. We're in this together. This is an ongoing, continuous process. When members of the community bring difficult issues to the table, like alternatives to jail overcrowding, it's because this affects our lives and the lives of our loved ones. Agencies should adopt procedures and funding priorities that ensure a coordinated approach that includes all community members. As John Comstock and others have mentioned, the forming of a collaborative criminal justice coordinating committee would be a good first start. As I said, problem solving is an ongoing process. It requires many of us working together. There need to be multiple forums to engage the community. Only then will we have a true picture to our country's needs in terms of the criminal justice system. We must include those who are currently ensnared in the court and jail system. We need to listen. We need to really listen and really ponder and really consider alternatives. Now that you're considering funding this study, I want you to review some of the materials I've brought for you. And from the National Institute of Corrections, the National Criminal Justice Association, the United Nations Office of Drug and Crime for guidance, and other legitimate sources that can give us guidance. This is just a small sampling. You can find full documents on the internet. I ask each and every one of you to commit to the inclusion of all community members and also make sure that this process is genuine. We want real solutions. So this study needs to be objective, it needs to be reliable, it needs to be verifiable, it needs to be valid and comprehensive. So I thank you for dedicating your time as a public service. And like I said, these are references from the National Criminal Justice Association, the United Nations Office on Drug and Crime and the National Institute of Corrections. People have worked for decades to find best practices. So thank you.
Thank you. Public comments. Ooh.
You okay? Yeah. Oops. Sorry. Yeah, thanks.
Beth Koger, 3661 Embry Drive, Fayetteville. During my career, I worked with a lot of people in law enforcement, a lot of sheriff's offices, mostly in Polk County, Yale County, Conway, and Johnson County. And I've never dealt with any office of sheriff that was more professional than we have here in Washington County. I've never dealt with a nicer sheriff or a nicer staff than I've encountered at Sheriff Helder's office. And I think Sheriff Helder would agree that he and I have a good relationship. We talk. He hears from me almost every day, if not every day, about every other day. We visited in the hall tonight. I do sit down and I do talk to Sheriff Helder, and he talks to me, and we exchange ideas. But every time I'm here, we're talking about the jail study. The jail is overcrowded. People are sleeping on the floor at the jail. But that's just one part of what we're dealing with here. When we say the jail, we're excluding the judiciary, the public defender, the probation, and the prosecutor. They are what put the people in the jail that Sheriff Helder is dealing with. And I want to say I think Sheriff Helder and his staff are doing a really good job with what they have to work with. I'm meeting with him next week. I might have a few suggestions more on that, but he's doing a good job. The other thing I want to say when we're talking about the cost, it is a lot of money, but it's not even 1/2 of 1% of $38 million. The cost of this study won't even pay the interest on the $38 million loan for 1 month. So think about that. And as to whether or not it should go on to a special election, like someone said, that's been voted down. But I want to remind the Quorum Court that as members of the court, you're fiduciaries for the citizens of Washington County and for our tax dollars. And before you proceed to not only place the tax burden of the sales tax for the jailers, but you need we need to hear from experts. And when you think about that, as to the study, the time of the study, the latest study that I presented is 22 weeks. And the reason they can do it quicker is because they have more staff, I think, than the other. But think about this. What is wrong with asking for professional help? If you're sued, are you going to go to your brother-in-law and ask him to defend you in court? Or are you going to go hire and pay a lawyer? Your brother-in-law would probably do it for free, but I think you'd want to hear an expert on that. And I want to hear from experts on this who can come in and give us the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comments.
We all think we have the solution. My name is Lorraine O'Neill. I live at 2070 East Spinell Link here in Fayetteville. And we all think that we are all experts, that we all have the solution. And I've heard many, many, many conversations, debates, discussions. The 3 points that I want to make right now, right off the top of my head, $100,000 wouldn't even begin for an outside entity to come in and do a proper study of this, number one. And if you had to put a time limit on it, 6 months would probably be the maximum that you could allow, because this has gone on far too long. So there would be not nearly enough time for an outside entity to come in and cover the scope of the study that would need to be done on a project of this size. And I think the third point I want to make is this is just another attempt to push the decision onto someone else. We need to make the decision. We have a perfectly capable sheriff, and I have made many suggestions to him. Whether he took them into effect, I think he did. And I'm sure he's had suggestions from everybody all over the county who was interested in this. But I think this money would be ill-spent because it's not going to anywhere come nearly close to doing the kind of job that we think that it's going to do. And I think it would be a failure on the Quorum Court to push this decision off to somebody else when we know perfectly well what we need to do. We just need to do it.
Thank you.
Hi, Sarah Moore, Fayetteville, Arkansas. Kind of in direct opposition, I guess, to what was just stated before. Back to some of the comments that you guys have made actually here in the court. We're not the experts on this. Echoing what Beth's sentiments about, we have a great sheriff's office and staff, but they have limitations on the things that they can do. And there are areas, just as I told someone, it's like I'm taking a college course at fire hose strength. I do not have a background in criminal justice, but I have learned a lot in the last 6 months. And even just myself as a layperson, the little bit that I've been able to dig into says that getting experts to give some opinions and some ideas, looking with an unbiased approach, just taking the data and crunching through the data, can potentially come up with some nuggets of information that are ahas that we maybe wouldn't know about ourselves. One of the things in talking to the Justice Management Institute that they were able to tell us when Beth and I spoke to them was the fact, and they're the firm that can do this within 22 weeks because they're so staffed, was that from the Bureau of Justice Statistics, the U.S. is actually incarcerating at 229 beds per 100,000. Arkansas is at 291 beds per 100,000. We're the number 4 incarcerator in the U.S., Arkansas. Pulaski County is at 307 beds per 100,000, and Washington County is has 329 beds per 100,000. So basically, we have more beds per 100,000 than even the U.S. does, Arkansas or Pulaski County. And so just with that little bit of information, I didn't realize how many beds we really had for our population. I didn't know how many beds we had for our population, and so that was a big nugget to hear from them. That was, in 1 hour of speaking with them, that they were able to bring that to our attention. So knowing if they could crunch through the information, them being the experts, them living this every single day, I think that they could bring us these big truths that we could act on. So I'd hope you would consider this ordinance so that we can get some folks to come in and give us some outside perspective and things that we can would it be actionable. They would be touching base with us, every 3 weeks. If you look at some of the timelines that we provided to you, they actually are coming back to you and reporting back every 2 to 4 weeks and giving you information about what they found so far and what their next steps are. And then they'll actually come in and present during our public meetings, and I'll actually give the findings they have at that time. So we can actually take steps as we go. I see this also as in tandem. We have to get those people that are sleeping on the floor today. That's not okay. I mean, we're continuing to talk to the sheriff. We want to partner and figure out alongside him and the public defender's office and the prosecuting attorney's office what we can do to get those folks off the floor, because we feel like there are some solutions we could all come together with that would be process changes that could happen quickly. So while the study is going on, we also could be problem solving as a community and continuing this conversation and putting some things in place to get those folks off the floor. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Moore.
Brandy Weaver. My address is 414 East Graham Street in Prairie Grove, Arkansas. I'm not an expert on the legalities, but what I can tell you as a niece of a meth addict, she is now currently sitting in a nursing home due to meth brain from getting a hold of some badly cooked methamphetamine. She has dementia due to methamphetamine. She has been in and out of jail the entire time, my entire life. She had 2 children, 2 boys. One of her boys, my cousin Elliot, is serving time in the state of Texas on a life sentence. He has been in and out of trouble since he was 12 years old. He went to juvenile facility at the first time at 12 years old, and then to an adult prison the first time at 16, and then was moved back to a juvenile facility. He has a son. And her second child, Cody, I was 15 the last time I saw him. I'm now 38 years old. He was taken because she went to prison and was given custody to his father's family somewhere up north. I don't even know their last name. So I am now 38 years old, and I have not seen my cousin in 23 years due to the patterns that happen throughout family cycles. I was not raised in a home with her. 2 of her boys were. I don't know where Cody's at in life. I haven't seen him in 23 years. Hopefully he's been raised better than his brother was and has not repeated that same cycle. If there is something that we can do, a combination of the facility that came and talked about working with people, getting them the counseling and things they need, in combination of getting these people off the floor, the nonviolent ones, releasing them on a no cash bond. In actuality, it was just the other day, there was an article released that a federal court found that cash bonds out of St. Louis, Missouri ruled unconstitutional for nonviolent offenders. And so this is something that we're going to continue to see a fight on.
Thank you. Thank you. Your time is done, but I want to make sure I heard the rest of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, public comments is completed, and we had a, let me see, where were we? What number are we, 15-1? 15-1. We had a motion? Public comment part is done. You got a quick comment? Quick? Come on.
My name is Carl Liu. I live at 911 West Hughes Street, apartment 6. I just want you guys to know this study is to bring information to you so you can make the best decisions possible for our criminal justice system. Now that the jail expansion has been tabled, we need to move forward. This process is not done. So we need to keep thinking about how we reconstruct our justice system, which is clearly broken. This jail continues to be overcrowded. My understanding is that it was expanded 15 years ago, perhaps. So if this continues to be an issue, we need to think about how we prosecute people. Is the public defender's office properly funded? Ombudsmen were brought up during this debate previously. We need objective resources to tell us, to guide us in this process. We can't just rely on the sheriff's office, we cannot just rely on you guys, and we cannot just rely on the citizens. We need a combination of information to come together to make the best decision possible for citizens who are greatly in need.
All right, thank you. Ms. Patty? We have the motion. You already made the motion.
I made the motion.
And we have a second.
And we
Who
have a
was the second?
second. I'm going to speak to the motion just briefly. I think we need to do this.
We already had a motion and a second on your motion.
I know.
Okay, so then, Ms. Patty, let's go to the roll. Ms. Patty?
Andrea Jenkins?
Yes.
Suki Hires?
Yes.
Sue Madison?
Yes.
Willie Lemming?
No.
Ann Harbison?
Yes.
Butch Pond?
No.
Lance Johnson?
No.
Susan Cunningham? No. Harvey Bowman?
No.
Patrick Deakins?
Yes.
Lisa Ecke? Sam Duncan?
No.
Chandra Washington?
Yes.
Eva Madison?
Yes.
It's tied, 7-7.
It does not? Okay, so they'll move to the next. 17 items. It failed. They did not. The vote was
7-7.
7-7.
Point of
So
order,
go-
it won't go on because it didn't get 8.
Oh, so it failed total.
Yeah, it
So
has
you
to
just
get-
have to
would
bring
have
it
to
back
get
up
8.
at your next committee meeting. Item 16, J.P. Harbison.
All right, we have a resolution to support grant money for the Brentwood Park. I move that we pass, okay, Brian, would you please read the title to 16.1?
A resolution supporting the construction of a playground at the Brentwood Community Park and Rest Area.
Move that we pass 16.1.
Been a motion to pass 16.1, a second by J.P. Bowman. Comments, J.P. Lemming and then J.P. Madison.
Is that a matching grant, or is that what kind of grant is that?
It's probably a state grant. That's normally what they get.
You don't know you don't know
well,
how much
I
money
don't-
we're gonna have to put with it?
We don't have to put normally we don't have to put any money with it at Brentwood.
I can't remember this one.
Okay.
J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Judge. I'm just curious about all these resolutions. Does the grant require the Quorum Court to bless this? Is this?
Yes,
Okay.
because it's state money and it's money that comes in and has to be distributed
Okay,
by
we seem to have a lot of
county.
resolutions. Thank you.
Okay, I got a motion, got a second. Any other comments? Public comments? Okay, Ms. Patty.
Andrea Jenkins.
Yes.
Suki Hires.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Willie Lemming.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
Yes.
Susan Cunningham.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Patrick Deakins.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. Chandra Washington.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
All right, that motion, that ordinance passes. Item 17.1, J.P. Harbison,
Okay, what was that?
17.
All right, 17 is a okay, read the title, please, Mr. Lester.
A resolution authorizing Washington County to submit an Arkansas Community and Economic Development Program grant application to the state of Arkansas.
All right, this is more money that we're applying for, so I move that we pass 17.1. Second.
Got a motion and a second by J.P. Hires. Any comments? Any other comments? Public comments? Any public comments? Ms. Patty?
Andrea Jenkins.
Yes.
Suki Hires. Sue Madison.
Yes.
Willie Lemming.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson. Susan Cunningham.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman. Patrick Deakins.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. Shonda Washington.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
All right. Item 17
Mr.
passed. Item 17 passes. Go ahead, J.P. Harbison, introduce
Okay,
18.
18.1, Mr. Lester, would you please read the title?
A resolution designating a nonprofit agency as the Community Development Block Grant Administrator.
All right, this is for a pumper truck for Evansville, and it will be administered through the Northwest Arkansas Economic Development District. I move that we pass 18.1.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any comments? J.P. Lemming.
Do you know if there's any matching money for that grant? That's for tanker fire trucks, correct?
That's correct.
Well, the matching money would probably come from the fire department,
Okay. Well, okay.
not the county.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Public comments? Ms. Patty?
Andrea Jenkins.
Yes.
Suki Hires. Sue Madison.
Yes.
Willie Lemming.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
Yes.
Susan Cunningham. Harvey Bowman. Patrick Deakins. Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. Shonda Washington.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Okay. Item 18 passes for the community block grant. Item 19, J.P. Harbison, will you
All right,
introduce?
19.1, Mr. Lester, would you please read by title only?
A resolution affirming Washington County's fair housing and equal opportunity.
All right, this is necessary for some of the grants that we are applying for, that we make sure that we are following federal guidelines on housing. I move that we pass 19.1.
Second.
Got a motion and a second for 19.1. J.P. Madison, then J.P. Madison.
So discrimination law is sort of what I deal with for a living, and so I looked at this and I thought, I have no idea what it means. I don't know how the county shall prohibit discrimination in public and private housing, in property ownership, and in employment opportunities, because that is so incredibly broad. And so part of me thought, well, yay, we're going to prohibit discrimination on the basis of gender and race and sexual orientation and gender identity, and we're just bringing it all in. But this is not specific at all. This is basically meaningless language. It doesn't reference any federal statute. It doesn't reference any protected categories. And I don't know how the county could ever say that we're going to prohibit discrimination in private housing. I mean, or in opportunities, employment opportunities. So I don't know what grant this is required for, but I don't think this resolution is doing much. If we're trying to do something specific, we need to be much more specific with it, because discrimination by itself, you discriminate, I don't know, like you like someone's hair color, that's discrimination. You discriminate against someone because you like their clothes, but illegal discrimination is on the basis of protected categories. And so if we're in fact trying to incorporate federal discrimination laws, we should specify what we mean. Do we mean race? Do we mean color? Do we mean gender? Do we mean religion? Do we mean disability? Do we mean age? Do we mean sexual orientation? So I don't know what this purpose is, but it doesn't mean much, and I'm going to vote against it because I don't think the county has the authority to say that we're going to prohibit discrimination in private housing.
J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Judge. I was going to ask J.P. Harbison to tell us what kind of grant needs a resolution like this.
Well, you need to ask Mr. Lester or our grants administrator, because they're the one that sent this and said we had to have it passed for certain types of grants.
It sounds a little bit like being in support of motherhood and apple pie, but, the devil's in the details, and there are no details.
J.P. Lemming and then J.P. Pine.
Could Mr. Lester answer
I
why
don't
we
have
need
any
this?
more.
Since J.P.
This
Harbison.
is a HUD grant, and HUD requires it, and you actually have passed a fair housing ordinance back '89, and then it was then again in '92 and '99, and it's in your policy that I would expect you as lawmakers to know what you did, but apparently you do not, so I'm telling you that it's there, and this was what we were told that HUD requires in order to get this grant. That's all I know.
We might need to get a special study for it. Thank you.
J.P. Pine.
I admire the wording of the resolution, and to be specific, I'm certainly glad we didn't list anything in this specifically, because we could have left some out. There was, by another member of the court, there was a list of specifics a while ago. To use that for an example, there were some specifics that were left out, therefore those folks would have felt discriminated against. So I like it the way it is. I appreciate it. So we're careful not to discriminate specifically against any of the minorities or folks that might think they're going to be discriminated against. Thank you.
Was there anybody over here? Any other comments? Public comments?
Nancy Johnson, Springdale, Arkansas. There is a federal fair housing law in place. Federal. Why would we need to do anything in addition to that when that stands? I'm surprised that I'm agreeing with Mrs. Madison. But I am. Lance held up a copy of the federal fair housing law that the realtors have adopted and used for years. If anybody wants a copy, I have 20 that you all can refer to.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Any other public comments? Ms. Patty?
Clock's right twice a day.
I did move to
Andrea
pass it, didn't
Jenkins.
I don't think I did.
Yes. Suki Hires.
Yes.
Sue Madison. No. Willie Lemming.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
Yes.
Susan Cunningham. Harvey Bowman. Patrick Deakins. Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan.
We're still on 17.1?
19.
Oh, we're 19.
You abstain?
Yes.
Shonda Washington.
No.
Eva Madison.
Passes, doesn't it?
What was the final? That one passes. All right, item 20, J.P. Harbison, will you introduce?
Mr. Lester, would you please read by title only, 20?
A resolution establishing an anti-displacement plan for Washington County, Arkansas in compliance with the Arkansas Community and Economic Development Grants Program.
And understood this one was also necessary for, I suppose, the HUD grant. All right, I move that we pass 20.1.
Second.
Got a motion to pass 20.1 and a second. Any other comments? Any comments? Any public comments? Any public comments? Ms. Patty?
Andrea Jenkins.
Yes.
Suki Hires.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Willie Lemming.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
Yes.
Susan Cunningham.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman. Patrick Deakins.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Shonda Washington.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
All right, that ordinance passes, item 20.1. And now 21, J.P. Harbison, will you introduce?
Okay, Mr. Lester, would you please read 21.1?
A resolution to establish a policy prohibiting the use of excessive force by law enforcement under the jurisdiction of Washington County against individuals engaged in nonviolent civil rights demonstrations.
Okay, and this is a condition of funding is that Washington County adopt a policy to comply with the relevant section of the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974, 42 U.S.C. 5304, 1 parenthesis as amended. Okay, I just read that because I knew someone was going to ask, why are we doing this resolution? I move that we pass 21.1.
Motion, and who did the second? And J.P. Jenkins. J.P. Madison?
Can we establish a policy by resolution? I mean, I would think if it's going to be a policy, it would need to be by ordinance. I don't know. I would assume the sheriff's office has this ordinance or some policy like this already. I'm looking. You have a use of force policy? Okay. Well, if we adopt a resolution, does it make for a policy for you all? No. Okay.
J.P. Madison?
Thank you, Mr. Judge. I just have to say this. I don't know exactly what all it was that J.P. Harbison just read that seems to require this, but I think our sheriff's office should take offense at this. I mean, I don't think they ever are guilty of using excessive force when in a nonviolent situation. I mean, I really think this is insulting. I'll vote
J.P.
for
Pine.
it, but it is insulting.
Okay. Thank you. J.P. Pine?
You know, I kind of think what this is saying, be it resolved that we kind of like the sheriff not using violent methods and activities, and since he hasn't, we kind of like what he's been doing, be it resolved. And by doing this, we can comply with these federal government wishes, and be it resolved, we're getting along with them too. Thank you.
J.P. Bowman?
You know, it really seems obvious. Thank you, Judge.
You got your mic on?
It says, whereas Washington County is applying for an AEDC, Arkansas Economic Development Commission funding. This is a requirement to qualify us for those fundings. So I'd like you to support this. Let's move ahead, please.
Any other comments? Public comments? Any public comments?
Beth Koger again. I just want to say briefly, I've been reading the Washington Code just for fun, and there's under section this law enforcement section, it's already mentions this. I don't know if it mentions the grant, but it already mentions that. Mr. Lester knows we've been talking about that. Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Patty?
Andrea Jenkins? Yes. Suki Hires? Yes. Sue Madison? Yes. Willie Lemming? Ann Harbison? Yes. Butch Pond?
Yes.
Lance Johnson?
Yes.
Susan Cunningham? Yes. Harvey Bowman?
Yes.
Patrick Deakins?
Yes.
Lisa Ecke?
Yes.
Sam Duncan?
Yes.
Shonda Washington?
Yes.
Eva Madison?
Yes.
That number passes? Okay, that does pass. Committee reports, J.P. Bowman. Get your mic, your microphone.
I don't think we had a meeting. My memory's failing me. Did we?
You did not.
Oh, I'm sorry. Here we go. Yes, we did. We saw yes, thank you. We had the report from the Washington County Medical Center, and we talked about unpaid roads, grants, and so forth. So that consists of our meeting.
All right, J.P. Harbison, Finance and Budget. J.P. Harbison.
Finance and Budget met on June the 11th at the Washington County Courtroom. Bobby Hill, our county treasurer, gave a report. On our quarter-cent sales tax, we were down $6,548.39 from a year ago. The 1 cent sales tax, we were down $4,817, and on the 1/2 cent road tax, we were up. All right, this is an indication that if the economy continues to turn down, then we're going to have to start tightening our belts, and elected officials are going to have to be more careful in their spending. We had a report from Nelson Driver. We ended up with a balance of $2.9 million. We started with $3 million. We spent about $100,000 in our self-insurance on claims this last reporting period. Shannon Worthen, our comptroller, gave a report on the budgets. Most of the budgets were at 41 to 42% of budget spent, which is about where we're supposed to be. We had an ordinance that we appropriated $100,000 from unappropriated reserves in the general fund to study the justice system of Washington County. That failed tonight. We had resolutions 9 through 14 that were taken off of our agenda, and those were acted on tonight. We had a bill where we changed 3 titles in the road department, reorganization of the road department, and that was training 1 cell official, grade 17, is converted to a safety training supervisor, grade 19. That did not require any more money out of the road department. We also changed a bridge supervisor to road and bridge supervisor and put the signs and tiles under this bridge supervisor position. We had to add $1,727 out of unappropriated funds at the road department to fund this position. We also, a right-of-way coordinator was changed to field superintendent. It went from a grade 20 to a grade 23, and the annual difference was $7,676. And that was also funded out of the unappropriated reserves in the road department. Y'all need to realize we have 3 distinct budgets in this county. We have the general budget, we have the jail budget, and we have the road department budget. All right. We had an ordinance by J.P. Ecke for vision, dental, and life insurance for those people serving on the quorum court if they so choose to buy it. Well, that was amended tonight. Our next Finance and Budget Committee will be July the 9th at 6 p.m. in the quorum courtroom.
Okay.
Hope to see you on July the 9th.
J.P. Harbison, thank you. J.P. Johnson.
Yes, thank you, Judge. First of all, I'd like to clarify a couple things. I've heard several times tonight that the Jail and Law Enforcement Committee tabled the ordinances that were proposed by the previous court. They were not tabled by the Jail and Law Enforcement Committee. They were postponed indefinitely, which in effect kills those ordinances. And I can't read the minds of my colleagues, and we can't talk to each other. I tried several times to find a way. I thought I could amend those ordinances that would be satisfactory to the majority of the people here. We still had $11 or $12 million for radios in those ordinances that we don't know anything about. So I don't think that there was any way that the committee could pass them in that current form. Now, I also believe that there may be an alternate that the sheriff may propose.
Order.
That
This
can
is
bring
supposed to
in.
be committee
Yes,
reports,
committee
I
report.
thought.
You doing your committee report? Committee report, go ahead.
I think
What-
there
what was
may
covered?
be.
Cover it what was covered in your committee.
Yes.
You're just covering what was covered in your committee.
Oh, okay. I think there might be a solution. I think
Okay.
there might be a short-term solution. I think there might be a long-term solution that this group could agree to.
Okay.
And again, I'm trying to learn how we get to the solution when we can't talk to each other, but we'll work on that one. Thank you.
Personnel, J.P. Pine.
Thank you. We in the Personnel Committee, we approved a request from Circuit Clerk Kyle Sylvester to adjust the pay of the Deputy Circuit Clerk position. And then we approved 3 requests by you for the road department and passed them on to the finance and budget, which Ms. Ann already covered. I do want to say, I receive a lot of compliments about work being done. Talking about the road department. People are very pleased with the improvements on the road. Thank you for that. So it's progress, much needed. Thank you.
Thank you, J.P. Pine. With that, motion to adjourn. County Quorum Court is concluded.